Rob Van Dam, listen to Tru Heel Heat. Pow.
Alright, this is Danhousen here, very nice, very evil. You are watching Tru Heel Heat. Probably should have had MJF do this, but here we are.
It's Saturday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for some Tru Heel Heat. Not as busy and as crazy as last week with the fallout that we discussed, but we got more fallout from the brawl from AEW All Out's post-media scrum post-show. We also are going to discuss the Young Bucks sending out feelers to WWE. The PWI 500 dropped this week, a whole slate of shows, and of course, the best matches of the week from each of our hosts, special guests as well today. So let's hit the intro and get to it. Hello. It is me, your Tru Heel Phenom, SP3. We are live on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube and Twitter for Tru Heel Heat 193 Super Feeler Party, discussing the latest wrestling news, including the Young Bucks reportedly sending out feelers to WWE, Logan Paul challenging Roman Reigns for Crown Jewel in November, recap of the shows from the week with AEW Dynamite featuring the Go Home to Grand Slam, AEW Rampage, WWE SmackDown, Raw, NXT 2.0's 1-year anniversary with the reveal of a new logo and the return of Black and Gold, and Impact on AXS-TV, as well as each host will give their match of the week plus more. I am not here with the beautiful, the lovely Miss Krssi Luv. Shout outs to her. She had a family emergency, last minute check out, so we wish her well and the family well on everything. But we got the last minute sub, and we got the 6th man of the year for the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel and the flagship show. He is the Tru Draw Josh.
I mean, technically, I'm beautiful too, just so you know.
This is true. This is true. You are lovely as well. How are you feeling today, Josh?
I'm doing good.
Great to have you. And we have a special guest with us today. He is a wrestling podcaster, writer, blogger extraordinaire. He is also the co-host of Wrestling's Unplugged and Undeniable. Jesse, what's going on, good brother?
Life is good. Bald is beautiful, as you can see. So you always remember that fact. And I am thrilled to be here on a YouTube screen here Saturday morning with all the Tru Heel listeners. Appreciate you all having me.
Appreciate you coming on. I try my best with the intro to let the people know everything you're doing in this wrestling media landscape. But please let the people know yourself, what you got going on, what brings you to the show, and what is your connection to this wrestling media world.
Ooh, where do we begin? So Wrestling's Unplugged and Undeniable. Google, Apple, Spotify is where you can find it. That's where I currently wrote for Daily DDT at one point. Just recently became a writer at SE Scoops. This is as of 24 hours ago. So you will expect some things will be contributing there looking forward to it with Ryan Drosty of Top Rope Nation, who's leading parts of that empire at SE Scoops. And I'll tell a quick 30-second story of how I met Mr. SP3. If everybody remembers the Minneapolis dinner incident at Full Gear in 2021, I so happened to walk in, I think 3 minutes after the picture was taken. I think I met you maybe 10 minutes after the fact and had no idea that that thing was going to go viral and the incident was just going to be all over social media. That was an interesting time. And all it looked like was an innocent dinner party. You could probably go into a little bit more about that, Sid.
When people have friends in this wrestling world and other people don't have friends, when you take a picture with your friends before a wrestling show, it becomes a big thing. It becomes viral. I'm mad that you didn't come a few minutes earlier. You could have been a part of the picture and been harassed for having a nice meal with a bunch of good wrestling fans.
You want to know something? I was at the bar waiting for my friend to get there. So my assumption is I was already there when this picture went down. You all had a lovely dinner. That establishment's pretty solid in downtown Minneapolis. Yeah, that's about where I'm going to go from there. And then one last thing about my podcast as well before we get into the meat and potatoes of the show. I've had quite a few phenomenal guest hosts. You two will be on here very, very soon. We'll be DMing as well. I've had the likes of John Alba, Kate Hensler, interviewed Shane Taylor, Danny Limelight amongst it. So again, Google, Apple, Spotify is where you can find Wrestling's Unplugged and Undeniable.
Yes, definitely check out Jesse. He's doing good stuff over there, and definitely you'll see some Tru Heel Heat over on their screens. But you're here for the flagship podcast, here to talk about the week in wrestling, and we appreciate you coming to us every Saturday, 11:05 a.m. Eastern time. So we appreciate you. Show your appreciation back by dropping the thumbs up on this video. Share this video with all your wrestling fans, friends, and family on all your favorite social media platforms. If you are new to the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell to stay notified for all the great content here. Been hitting big numbers on the YouTube channel, trying to hit 3K before the end of the year. So just a couple of months to go. And we have also hit a nice little streak on our flagship podcast here, 1,000 views over the last 8 weeks. So keep it coming, share it with a friend, and tell them about Tru Heel Heat every single Saturday. And why? Because we are interactive. We want to hear from all of you. We're going to try to highlight as many of your comments as possible. But the best way to show your comment on screen and to show your appreciation for Tru Heel Heat is with the super chat donation. Any $1 amount matters, and we will highlight it on screen here. We got CM here with us who says a nice calm Saturday morning. Yes, nice calm Saturday morning. I was quite surprised when I was thinking about the week in wrestling. We got Joseph with it who says, good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. We got the Negro Buck Nick Jackson who says, good morning, y'all. Hope everyone is well. We got G Loke who says, Tru Heel, let's turn up, guys. A lot to talk about. Yes, even on the not so busy weeks, there still is a lot to talk about. And we got Vala B who says, is this the one where BS goes bitch mode? Yes. He is talking about that famous Minnesota dinner, that BS, which great initials. Got all upset about it because
BS. He blocked me on Twitter. That was a great day for me.
A great day in history. You got residual heat. You got 6 degrees of separation heat.
Yeah, he got upset because what happened was that he got upset because I posted one of his fake news and I mocked him for it, and he blocked me.
Seems like BS. Get it? We also got Vala B who says 1K views for weeks. You need to do a TK like tweet now, SP3. No, I'm doing it after 10. I'm not gonna do the TK thing after a few weeks. If we get 3 more weeks. 3 more weeks of 1K, I'm going out on Twitter and I'm gonna be like, this is a great momentous day, 1K views over 10 weeks. Go over and check out Servant Facing Heels on Sunday. Like, I'm gonna push the next show. That's what it's all about. You hype up and praise the success of one show, hype up the other one. Smart Tony Khan tweeting. And Annika said, Joshua on Saturday, let's go. So people happy to see Josh. People happy to see Jesse, the two J's here with us. And we are happy to see all of you. We're going to start things off with our Tru Heel Roll Call, shouting out our contributors on social media, as well as the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel and Patreon. Over on our Facebook group page, Tru Heels, our Tru Heel Trinity, coming in at number 3 is Joe Bellini. Coming in at number 2 is Stewie Palmer. And coming in at number 1, the Negro Buck, Nick Jackson. Patreon backers, we also got Nick Jackson, Vala B, Alan Weinstein, Nick, Alex McCarthy, Professor Chris, Austin K, You My Boy Blue, Yachty, Robert, Steve, Antoine, Fifth Generation Carney, DJ Eric, Ladarius Brown, John, aka Russell Scopes, Dan Snide, Kobe, Toy Morgan, John Paul, and Blue Eyes. And we got a super chat donation early here from Vala B. Thank you so much, Vala B, for that. Who says, all in all, when it comes to the news, it's been slow. And considering what we've been through, that's great. Yes, I take the slow weeks. I take the slow weeks in stride, but we still have things to discuss, Josh and Jesse. So let's get to it with what we missed. Of course, what we missed during the week, we had AEW Dynamite, which honestly did its best rating of 2022, its highest viewership since September 2022. September 2020, September 2nd, 2021 was the last time they had a rating this high. They did 1.175 million viewers, and the show featured the semifinals of the Grand Slam Tournament of Champions. First, you had Jon Moxley defeating Sammy Guevara in a very fun opener. You had Bryan Danielson defeating Chris Jericho in an excellent main event to set up Mox versus Dragon 2 for the vacant AEW World Championship next week in Arthur Ashe Stadium in Queens, New York. So I know a bunch of us going to be there live. I know Josh is going to be there live. I'll be there live, and I can't wait to see the Battle of the Blackpool Combat Club for the top prize in All Elite Wrestling. You also had MJF cut a terrific promo and introduce Stokely Hathaway and the Firm, who set their sights on gold after being introduced by MJF here. You also had Swerve in Our Glory defeated Lucha Brothers in an awesome sprint to retain the AEW World Tag Team Championships. Post-match, the Acclaimed made their final claim that they will win the titles at Grand Slam. And he also had Serena Deeb and Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, beat Toni Storm and Athena in a preview of a 4-way for next week's Grand Slam event. Post-match, Jamie Hayter came out with a steel chair and attacked Toni Storm, but walked out and didn't accept the apology of Britt Baker. Jesse, what was your highlight from Dynamite this week? What I thought was a really good show to set up Grand Slam.
I love that even in the roundabout way, Sid, that it's been a year since they've had this high of a rating when you had a Danielson Omega-led AEW Grand Slam and a main event of Britt Baker and Ruby Soho. That show was loaded. This show is going to be loaded coming up next week. I enjoyed a lot of this, and it's going to tie in a little bit later to what we're talking about. I would say my favorite bout was probably the main event. I don't know where this renaissance of Chris Jericho came from over the course of 2022, where he's turned back the clock with Eddie Kingston, Jon Moxley, Bryan Danielson a couple of times. This one was definitely better than their all-out match. Truly enjoyed that. It's weird. Chris Jericho right now is kind of living in tweener land, and the biggest reason I feel that he is because everybody still loves his entrance music, even though you can associate Jake Hager with him until the end of time to try to get that heel heat, and I don't necessarily know if that really matters. There's a section of the audience that still truly appreciates Chris Jericho as a performer, even though some people could go out of the way and call him Jan Sixico. Chris Jan Sixico, thank you very much. Yeah, that Danielson Jericho main event was phenomenal, and we're looking forward, like you said, that Blackpool Combat Club main event next week. That excites me a lot. One last thing as well. Obviously, the opener was very, very good. The women's 4-way is going to be set up as well for next week. You got Jamie Hayter going to be, we assume, awaiting the winner of this match, we have the Acclaimed that are just sitting in that background, getting ready to, we feel, take over and win this title next week. I loved the Swerve Lee Lucha Bros match. It was quick, 8 to 10 minutes, served that nice little, not necessarily a breather. It was just like you blink and you miss it, but that's just the fast pace that I truly enjoy. The whole buffet of AEW Dynamite was exactly the tempo that I like it as. And I'm curious to hear your thoughts as well.
Josh, what about you? How did you enjoy AEW Dynamite? Watching it here live on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel.
I mean, for me, it was I don't know, it felt kind of down for me. But part of it too is because I know they're leading up to a Grand Slam, so sometimes you need to do that. You need to have those down shows, so then you can have your big show. And I think that's, this was the case for Wednesday. But besides that, I mean, it wasn't a bad show. I mean, it wasn't great, but it definitely wasn't bad, to say the least. But besides that, I mean, because the best part of the watch along was, Super Guy JJ doing his one chip challenge, but that didn't end up well for him on the stream live. But no, but besides that, I mean, there was 3 great matches. 3 great matches. The main event was really good. I thought their match was better on Dynamite than it was at All Out, just because it didn't feel slower. I felt like the one in All Out, it kind of felt slow at times, but I think they're telling a story when it comes to Jericho's wrestling. And I noticed that with Jericho, that he's relying more on that again than he was in the past. So, and that's been a good thing for him. So, I look forward to Grand Slam. I'll be there in person. So, hopefully they deliver on that.
Yeah, I enjoyed the show. I thought it was a maintenance show because they had to set up, Grand Slam. But I thought it was, like Jesse said, the right type of pace to a maintenance show where it wasn't a lot of, promos and squash matches. You had that on this show, but they did fill it in with 3 really good matches. I thought the opener was extremely fun, just the different style of Moxley's brawling, meeting the more athletic Sammy Guevara, and him bringing out a little bit more aggressive side and fighting spirit from Guevara. I enjoyed Swerve in Our Glory versus the Lucha Bros. I thought that was one hell of a sprint, just all action, and made me want to see Swerve versus Phoenix for sure. And then the main event, I totally agree with the both of y'all. It was so much better than the All Out match. The All Out match, it had things against it. You try to have this kind of like long form technical wrestling 20-minute bout in the 4th hour of a 5-hour show. It's a lot different than being the main event on a 2-hour show and coming in an hour and a half into the broadcast. Totally different. I thought the crowd was hot and great for the matchup. I thought the technical exchange, Jericho going from the walls to Bryan to the label lock, was great stuff. And they were a little bit more snug, and they cut a better pace than they did at All Out, so it made for a better match. But all in all, I thought it was great setup for Grand Slam. Can't wait to be there, and can't wait. I agree with Jesse as well. It's the Acclaimed night, right? It's the Acclaimed night. I think that opens the show.
It's gotta be
on Wednesday.
It's gotta be.
That's the big pop to start the show.
Yeah, there's gotta be. I mean, and it's home field for them. So imagine how it was in Chicago. I think it's gonna be a lot. It's gonna be worse for Swerve Our Glory on Wednesday.
Like I said on our review, I said the only thing that I've heard from like a crowd just unanimously saying this is our team. The best comparison that I have is being there live in 2016 for TakeOver Brooklyn when DIY versus the Revival, and the fans just chose DIY on that night, and they were so mad when they lost. That's how it felt when Swerve in Our Glory beat the Acclaim at All Out, being there live.
It makes this even sweeter coming up next week, to be honest. This is, I guess DIY would actually be a great example of almost calling an audible on the fly if you were ever to do so and say, this team should go over on this night, and this is the reason why, just because the Acclaim got the biggest crowd response at All Out, and that's Punk's hometown. Moxley is at the height of his popularity. So the crowd wants this, but now you're going to do it in their hometown of New York, or in their home state of New York next week. Perfect time to crown him.
I agree, and I think the reason, because we have people in the chat like Frantic World here who says this week's AEW Dynamite was okay to him. I still can't believe they got 1.1, basically 1.2 million viewers. I think it comes down to the company doesn't have the same momentum that it did last fall, but people were talking about them. For the wrong reasons, not the reasons that they had last year when they signed Bryan Danielson, Adam Cole, CM Punk just come out. They had all that type of like positive buzz, but sometimes negative buzz gets people interested, gets people watching. This is 4 straight weeks of them doing 1 million, and the one common thread throughout it, pre All Out, post All Out, is the drama backstage, starting with the CM Punk promo on Hangman Adam Page. The first week they hit 1 million was the big Moxley Punk Undisputed Championship match. Then you had the Go Home show. That was more chatter about what was going on with Punk. You had Thunder Rosa. You had the Eddie Kingston, Sammy Guevara thing. And then post All Out, it's been all this stuff about CM Punk and the Elite. I think that has caused people to be more interested and want to watch AEW Dynamite. I think that's the big difference why they've done so well in the ratings. What do you think, Jesse?
I'll say one thing as well. We're hitting the fall, where in the summer, people are a little less apt to be watching television on 7 o'clock at night. They're going to be out at a patio somewhere or taking a walk with their family, or hey, wrestling fans do touch grass. So we have that going on for us as well. I think that's a big reason why we're starting to see the slight rise. And another huge advantage that AEW has over the likes of the WWE is they don't compete with football on Mondays, which is something we might segue into later with Raw coming, the ratings starting to drop about 300,000. That's because they have to compete with Monday Night Football. AEW has minimal opposition from a sporting perspective. You might get hit with like some political news, but Wednesdays are pretty much unopposed, and I think that's going to be a big benefit to them later.
That's a great point. And it might be that people skipped out on Monday Night Raw because they were watching football and they weren't basically worn out with wrestling, and they needed their wrestling fix and just tuned in on Wednesday. We might see that pattern. This is just the first week, but you might see that pattern over the course of the season. But we do have some like big news coming out of Dynamite and coming from AEW from this week. On Sunday, there was a rumor on social media that the Young Bucks have sent feelers out to the WWE, possibly going to the WWE following the brawl at AEW All Out. The Bucks were suspended from AEW along with Kenny Omega, CM Punk, Ace Steel, and others pending an investigation, as we discussed last week. However, it was noted on this week's Wrestling Observer Radio that the Bucks have not attempted to contact WWE at all, according to sources. The rumor was said to have come from Dave Meltzer, but Meltzer said he did not report it, and it was noted that the Bucks are under contract to AEW until the end of 2023. Of course, their status in the company may depend on what happens with the external investigation. Then on Monday, a new report had some updates on the rumors that the Young Bucks sent out feelers to people in WWE. Fightful Select reported that the rumor has been floating around since August, with one source saying that they've been sworn to that the Bucks asked to speak with someone in WWE management, though Fightful has been unable to confirm that. Meanwhile, sources close to the Young Bucks said they haven't been given that indication at all, and that particular course would likely be in a good position to relay that information, noting that they aren't sure who the Bucks would even reach out to in WWE. One source in WWE that has worked with higher-ups note that they have heard the rumor, but hadn't asked people of importance with WWE, as they wouldn't be sure how that would be received. They did remind the site that the Young Bucks will nearly sign with WWE before they helped launch AEW, and believes they wouldn't need to gauge interest. If the rumor is true, they would likely be checking on some other situations related to possible free agency. Dave Meltzer reported additional details on the situation on Tuesday's Wrestling Observer Radio. According to Meltzer, the Young Bucks have denied sending out feelers to WWE. Additionally, Meltzer noted that the Bucks previously already negotiated with Triple H in 2018 before ultimately signing with AEW. So if they wanted to get in touch with him, they wouldn't need an intermediary to get through to him. Meltzer added that the Jacksons normally talk to people who are in WWE and said that's not unusual. It was noted that if they wanted to get in touch with Triple H, they wouldn't need anyone to get there. They would know how to contact them himself. Furthermore, while they are in contact with people who are in WWE, it's not anything out of the ordinary. And then on Thursday's Wrestling Observer Radio, it was noted that the person the Bucks talk with, who they likely talk to frequently, said they didn't ask to speak with management or anything like that. In the latest update, Dave Meltzer reported that the Young Bucks did call a friend in WWE a few months ago, way before All Out, but stories about the call were exaggerated, basically using this news of all the fallout from All Out to kind of take advantage of it. But sometimes they say where there's smoke, there is usually a fire. Josh, what do you think about the validity of this rumor of the Young Bucks sending out feelers to WWE and the likelihood of the Young Bucks going to WWE?
I don't know. I really don't. I don't 100% believe it, just because we know how they are. We know how the Young Bucks are when it comes to stuff like that. But then also, like you said, they don't need to try hard to talk to certain people within the company. I mean, they have Cody, that's there. That's the biggest name they talk to. And then Triple H, like you said, when it comes to the situation with Triple H, they had 3 different negotiations with Triple H. So they know him well enough to even reach out to him when it comes to that. As for them possibly going to WWE, I mean, I think with everything that's been going on, but then also with them getting older, and I think they're starting to realize certain things. They're starting to realize that, you know, their wrestling career is not going to go forever. It wouldn't surprise me at this point, and they end up going to WWE after their contracts finish, just because, like I said, they're getting older. They'll get paid a lot of money. And, you know, once you get to that age and you still have a young family, you know, sometimes you look out for your family first. So I think that's where that's going to be the biggest factor when it comes to everything. I think it's going to just come down to money. You know, if they have to do less work, they're going to take it. So, yeah.
And then, yeah, that only makes sense. And that's thinking about the long-term growth of your family. Jesse, what do you think about the rumors of the Young Bucks going to WWE? Did you take it seriously when you first heard it? And what do you think about the possibility of the Young Bucks going to WWE? And do you think they would be successful?
Seriously, at first, no. Looking at it now, maybe. I think the gateway obviously is Cody Rhodes, and not right now. The big key is going to be 2023 when Cody comes back from his injury, and just to see his creative and how it looks, because I'm assuming with MJF as well in 2000 and coming into the end of 2023, a lot of these guys are going to look to see how Cody's being treated and then maybe jump ship. I did enjoy Josh's mention of family. That's going to be huge. If you follow the Young Bucks closely, their family is everything. So AEW, in a sense, has actually catered to their families, where they work one night a week. They can fly home and then come back. With the WWE schedule, maybe we'll see. Actually, we are starting to see more house shows or live events for them. So I guess that could be worked into their contract as well. I think the other big thing is, with their egos, because they definitely have them, is their creative. And that's going to have to be played into their contract one way or another. I feel that just because they've been very generous since they started the company in 2019, putting over the likes of Private Party, and then losing in this triple threat match where Swerve and Lee picked up the titles, they will put teams over. I think they're going to want to get theirs when they get there in 2024. So we're looking at like a Young Bucks Uso dream match that people talk about a lot. There could be some kind of fight back to where, okay, the Usos are going to be, maybe, for example, let's say they have a 2 out of 3 and the Usos are going to go over 2 out of 3, or they sweep them. I just kind of had that Vince McMahon mentality of, if you've been with the WWE since the very beginning, we're going to put you over first. And then, you know, the rest of you are going to be fighting for scraps. So that's why I said, tying it all back together, the way that Cody Rhodes is being portrayed in 2023, I think is going to play a huge role, because the Young Bucks, they have money. They're going to be fine. 50-50. Actually, no, I'm going to go 60-40 that they stay in AEW as of this point.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Yeah, I would go 75-25. I think that it's more of a chance than anyone thought a year ago, mainly because of the Cody factor. You also, I don't think you mentioned Kevin Owens is a very close friend of theirs as well. Finn Balor, AJ Styles. So they got a bunch of people. We don't know if the Good Brothers might be heading back over there. So there's a bunch of people in WWE that could be pulling at them, being like, hey, you know, you can go back to AEW where you pretty much done everything. You know, you were EVPs before. Maybe if you come back after your suspension, they might take that title away from you. So you're making different stuff. You're not getting health care anymore. Why not make as much money as possible? Come to WWE for 3 years, and then you could go end your career in AEW if you want, but to just take this 3-year deal and shut up.
No, saying that, but then also from what I remember too, when they negotiated, I know WWE was willing to throw like a lot at them, not only money wise, but like as in like their contract structure. So I know one of the negotiations, I think the first time, was that they had not a set deal, but they had a deal that if they weren't happy within the first 6 months, they were allowed to get out of their contracts. So they're trying to find every way to try to get them like that. So I wonder if that's going to happen as well, where when it comes to the structure of the terms of the contract, that's what's going to sway them.
In tag team wrestling, I think that's the other thing. The WWE doesn't necessarily prioritize it. And who knows, we could be looking at the Street Profits splitting by the time they get there. The allure of the tag team division, and they might only have to wrestle the Usos or the New Day. We don't know what that tag team situation is going to look like in the next year and a half.
Yeah. I think that's what people get a little bit like the cart before the horse, basically, with any tag teams going to WWE. I saw somebody yesterday on a show I was doing suggest Aussie Open come to WWE because Triple H is a fan of tag team wrestling. But I'm like, if you really think about it, it's only 2 teams, really. It's the New Day and the Usos. Like, tomorrow, most of the other teams can break up on a whim, and people will say, oh, no, you're thinking about the old regime. You're not thinking about this new regime. No, I am thinking about Triple H. I'm thinking about Triple H and his booking of NXT. This booking of NXT that people put up on their walls and have alone time with some lotion and think about the black and gold era. It had some flaws. It wasn't perfect. It was just better than everything else we gotten from WWE in years.
That's what it is.
Glorify it on a higher level, but it had flaws. It had flaws. Triple H was not perfect. Tony Khan's not perfect. Gato's not perfect. None of these bookers, none of these promoters are perfect. They got flaws. So I'm just basing it on Triple H and tag team wrestling. Yeah, it had its run. It had DIY and the Revival. Great rivalry. You had Revival and Alpha, American Alpha before that. Great stuff there. Then you had the Authors of Pain, and it was then you had Sanity have it for a while. It was, then Undisputed Era had it. They went on a great run because you had 2 good workers with those titles. So they went on a great run for 2 years and held up the tag team division. But really, it was Undisputed Era and then everybody else. So really, all he's really done with tag team wrestling is have like 3 or 4 good feuds in the tag team division. When you really think about the black and gold era of NXT, it didn't have like this, I saw this feud, I saw this match. No, you got the DIY and Revival era, you got Revival in American Alpha, you got Undisputed Era and a whole bunch of great matches they had, Mustache Mountain, Lorgan and Burge, and then none of the other reigns were as good as that. Like Raiders had a dominant reign and some good matches, but nothing special. Street Profits were champions, but nothing too special.
And no, it's not. And it wasn't only that. It was the fact that what benefited him more so was that he always went with the hottest team at the moment. So that benefited him. Like, you know, each team that you just mentioned, they won it in in a situation where they were at the hottest team at that moment. So that benefited him as well. But everything else, yeah, you're right about. So, you know, because we haven't seen that from WWE. We haven't seen that from the main roster. You know, things usually tend to get blown out of proportion, or, you know, they get over, you know, people oversell it when it comes to that. So that I could see definitely.
The War Raiders in Ring of Honor in New Japan, whoa! And then even in NXT, they were undefeated, I think, the entire time.
Yeah.
DIY ended up splitting, and they ended up becoming more important as singles performers. So I guess tag team wrestling as a whole, in the last, I mean, maybe as long as I've been watching, there's been a premium on it, and I've heard a couple of promoters say that at the end of the day, where the draws and the money comes from are the singles performers, where the Young Bucks are trying to kind of smash that myth. And they did a great job the initial stages with the Lucha Bros and even with FTR. Unfortunately, with Santana and Ortiz, they definitely didn't get their just due, and kind of unfortunately with Santana lost in the shuffle, but kind of back to the WWE. I'm not necessarily sold on them putting a premium on tag team wrestling because, quite frankly, they never really have.
Yeah.
I think we'll get good tag team matches because you got teams like the Imperium, New Day, Usos, Street Profits. You got some really good teams on the main roster right now. So you'll get good matches, but as far as pushing it to the level that AEW has pushed their tag team division, like AEW still hasn't main evented a pay-per-view with their tag team titles, yet it just feels like it's on such a higher level than anybody else's tag team division with, like, you know, a good batch of teams that can go on for days. And I totally agree with Jesse that if the Young Bucks come to WWE, it's not going to be the situation that it was in the beginning stages of AEW, where they had to get over all these different teams. They had to get over Private Party. They had to get over SCU. They had to, you know, step aside for Hangman and Kenny. They wanted FTR to win the tag team titles first before them. They did all that stuff, and then they went on their long run, and they had the best AEW World Tag Team title run. But if they come to WWE, I expect within 3 months, they should be undisputed tag team champions. All facts. But we got more fallout from the Brawl Out from All Out, talking about the suspensions and more updates on that. As previously discussed, several people were suspended from AEW following a brawl between CM Punk, Ace Steel, and the Elite. Of course, this came off the heels of the AEW All Out post-media scrum. Those suspended included the Young Bucks, CM Punk, Kenny Omega, Pat Buck, Ace Steel, Christopher Daniels, Michael Nakazawa, and Brandon Cutler. PW Insider reports that Pat Buck has returned to work in his role as the AEW Vice President of Talent Development, and he was at Dynamite this week. All of the people suspended or held from TV were ordered to stay at home pending an investigation by a third party legal firm. Daniels and Omega are in Japan and working on promotion for AEW Fight Forever. Daniels may also be back in his role in talent relations. CM Punk and the Young Bucks were not in Albany, and even if he wasn't suspended, CM Punk is recovering from triceps surgery that he suffered at All Out. PW Insider has added that more details to the story about Pat Buck, specifically as it relates to Christopher Daniels and Kenny Omega. It was noted that below that they were in Japan doing work for the company's video game. However, Daniels has several AJPW dates announced for this weekend, so that's the main reason he's there. Omega, who visited Sega, is there on his own and not on behalf of AEW due to his suspension. He was basically pulled from the promotion for AEW Fight Forever, and a new report had more people lifted from their suspension. The quartet of Michael Nakazawa, Pat Buck, Christopher Daniels, and Brandon Cutler are no longer suspended on the based on the brawl that happened following All Out. Daniels and Nakazawa were cleared to participate in matches at the Tokyo Gaming Show, where AEW Fight Forever was having a presentation, and everyone the site spoke with said they believed that the four were only preliminary suspended as a precaution until things got settled. And the report notes that there is no timetable as of the week for the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega to return from their suspension. Omega already planned to have the week off. As always, CM Punk and Ace Steel's statuses are unclear, with Punk out due to injury, and Steel was not at Dynamite this week. The site notes that a couple of other names were nearby but not suspended, with the belief is that the suspensions weren't needed as they weren't physically involved in the situation at all. The Wrestling Observer newsletter has an interesting update on suspended wrestlers in AEW, particularly when it comes to taking outside work. Normally, wrestlers in AEW can take outside dates with approval from Tony Khan, as long as they don't conflict with AEW dates. But according to the Wrestling Observer newsletter, talent on suspension isn't allowed to work anywhere else. It was noted that Kenny Omega had originally been set to work the Tokyo Gaming Show to promote AEW Fight Forever, while he is still in Japan for personal reasons, as he did take pictures with Kota Ibushi during the week and actually announced that he's been scanned for the Yakuza game. He is no longer involved with the AEW games promotion there. The Wrestling Observer newsletter stated that the promoters interested in at least one, if not all, currently suspended talents were told that they are not available until the suspensions are over. So a lot coming out of All Out still. We'll probably be still feeling the after effects of this brawl and what happened post-show. Jesse, what was your thoughts on everything that's gone down in the last 2 weeks now? It's been 2 weeks, crazy. It's been 2 weeks since All Out, with the fight, with the suspensions, and then this latest update with some people being lifted, but the main participants in the brawl, the Elite and CM Punk, still under suspension.
That initial still shot that you had with CM Punk looked like there was a lot of uppers in that cupcake. Tony Khan looked like he hadn't slept in about 36 hours and about to perform an exorcism. Wow. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Ooh, that looked like a fun night. Anyways,
Tony Khan just before that was
let's
like,
fucking go. Probably. This is a mess. The minority or the minor players in this being lifted from their suspension, it really doesn't make a difference. I think at this point we're looking at the true big players here. I think it's almost a blessing in disguise that CM Punk is out for 7 months because of that tricep surgery. This is going to give a lot of time to blow over, heal, and maybe even mend fences with the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega if he wants to continue to stay with AEW. As for the Bucks and Omega, when they come back, and just that whole scene was just a mess. I actually remember leaving All Out that night from the arena and checking Twitter, and it just the whole thing was just so explosive, and I was just curious what the afterthought was going to be. And you can tell that it's still extremely explosive because you haven't heard a statement from Punk. You haven't heard a statement from the Bucks. You haven't heard a word from Omega. It's just all been status quo. Tony Khan, he didn't even reference it on the first Dynamite. So there's something a lot more serious to this than we know to believe. This is just one of those things where you have to be in a wait and see pattern. And obviously, we're going to see the Young Bucks and Omega first, just because they're the healthiest of the four. And I actually really like that point with Kenny was supposed to have an appearance on Swerve Strickland's podcast, and that's not going down either, which is extremely unfortunate. So we know that this incident is way more serious than is being led to believe. I want to hear Josh's thoughts on this.
Yeah, what did you think, Josh? What do you think about this latest update with Omega being pulled from the Tokyo Gaming Show promotion for AEW Fight Forever, as well as the lifting of suspension for the minor players?
Well, when it comes to Omega, I completely understand it, just because, he's in a situation where, you have to be serious about this. If you're suspending guys, you can't treat them a certain way when they're suspended. So on that aspect, I 100% get it. As for the other guys, their suspensions being lifted, I mean, I'm fine with it. If they didn't do anything wrong in the situation, then of course, that's their decision when it comes to that. Which, from what I understood, I think all they really did was break up the fight. I think there was initial thought that they were also like involved, as in like, oh yeah, they went in with the Young Bucks. That was the initial thought. So everybody in that situation being suspended, I kind of understand why it was done, because there's so many moving parts to the situation that we still don't know. We still don't know what's the real story to this day, because one story you hear, oh, they kicked in the door and CM Punk felt threatened, so he defended himself. Then the other story is, oh, they just opened up the door and they wanted to have a conversation, and CM Punk was being the madman. It's just
both Fightful and Wrestling Observer newsletter noted that now the Punk side has kind of fallen back from that kicking the door down statement, saying that they barged in, they came in unwanted, and kicking the door down was a figure of speech. I mean, the more information
I kind of figured that. I kind of figured that. Yeah.
You hear side, A, B, C of the story, you can sort of figure out D. You hear side A, side B, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. In the middle of this truth, from all the sides and all the reporting that we've seen over the last 2 weeks, it sounds like CM Punk got shook, because he was the one that invited anyone who had a problem with him to come to his locker room. And then when they came, he was shook, thought it was going to be a fight, and threw the first punch.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it comes out to me. It's, like I said before, like when I spoke about it 2 weeks ago, the whole thing is it's a mess. I mean, it's an unfortunate situation. But like I said before, both sides were wrong either way. And this is a perfect example of it, because I'm seeing, when people saying like, oh yeah, Punk should be fired because this, that, and the third. But at the same time, who's to say the Bucks shouldn't be fired, And I like the Bucks way more than I like CM Punk. But also they're in a situation where, they have important titles in the company. You just can't do what they did, they pretty much, it was a situation where somebody was pissed off. He blew up some steam. And then by you putting yourself in that situation, going to his room, you just make the situation 1,000 times worse by doing that. It's just a whole mess when it comes to that. But like I said, when it comes to that, I mean, both sides were wrong. Now you could say one side was more wrong than the other. Yes. But I mean, like I said, in the whole situation, so there are so many people that were wrong in the situation.
Part of me thinks too that there's more substance to this than Hangman Page supposedly throwing a real life incident into a promo, and then of course with Colt Cabana's name being thrown in there too, and hasn't been on TV. He's been in Ring of Honor. I was actually at the Saturday Night Nitro Minneapolis last week. He was there for that. So, I mean, obviously he's completely separated from the incident. I actually feel almost the worst for Hangman Page right now. And I think one of the biggest reasons is he's one of the few that hasn't gotten an immediate world title rematch, number one. And his character, in a sense, is almost an afterthought at this point, especially since losing to Danielson in the first round of this Tournament of Champions. So it's, again, the repercussions are not just with Punk, the Bucks, and Omega. It affects the entire AEW roster from the top going to the bottom.
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
Shout outs to Cher Delaware for giving Dax Harwood Cash Wheeler actually, a bottle of liquor, because apparently he got drunk with Hangman Page, and that's why Hangman left early, or he would have been involved in this whole situation. But I totally agree with you, though. Hangman's booking has been subpar, I think, ever since he won the AEW World Championship. It
100%.
added to his title reign that, you didn't have that strong belief. Like when you have Bryan Danielson be the first challenger, you had people realistically thinking Bryan Danielson was going to beat him. But once that feud was over, his presence on the show got lesser and lesser and lesser. And now that he doesn't have the championship, he's not there at all. And I tend to think that Punk getting upset pre-Double or Nothing has led to what's happened to Hangman Page's booking since he lost the world title. I think it has something to do with it.
I would love to see what's in CM Punk's contract, because I know there's kind of some whispers as well that his creative control might be higher than almost anybody's in the entire company. And that could be part of the reason why Hangman never really got his rematch. And then, of course, he was triggered by that promo that happened right before Double or Nothing. And then he just went into business for himself and called him out on the 17th of August in West Virginia. So, yeah, again, Punk probably has a little bit more power than we're all kind of thinking at the moment.
Yeah, I don't take too much into account as far as Hangman not getting a shot at the championship, because before Hangman, the only AEW world champion that ever got a rematch for the title was Moxley. Jericho didn't get a rematch until 2 years later. Omega's not got a rematch yet. So Hangman not getting a rematch wasn't that big of a deal. I think it was more of a bigger deal that he was basically not existent at all. Like, you thought he was not existent when he had the title. Oh no, he's not existent now that he doesn't have the championship. So hopefully, you know, had a great match with Danielson last week. Hopefully, you know, I'm hoping from all this bad publicity that AEW is doing is that they're able to turn the tide and put some of that bad publicity onto television and make it good publicity, because I feel that is the number one reason why they have been over 1 million for 4 straight weeks. I think the drama has drawn people in, and they want to see if they want to see it, even if they want to, you know, root for it to succeed, or they want to see it if they're rooting for it to fail and they want to see the final days of AEW. Either way, it's working for them. And I'm just hoping they can turn everything around and give me a CM Punk and Kenny Omega feud on TV. That's the biggest thing they could give us right now.
Yeah, but then also their shows have been great. You know, they haven't had a bad show. That helps it too. Like, having all this drama and your show actually being great, that helps them as well. Because imagine that they're having all this drama and the shows were bad, the drama will be to blame for that, for all of that.
A lot more continuity in the booking without the backstage drama. I think that's been one of the biggest reasons, as you alluded to, Josh, as to why the consistency of the programming has gone up a little bit over the last 3 weeks.
Totally agree with both of you guys. We got a couple of super chat donations here. Keep those coming in. Those help out the channel so much. And it makes sure we highlight your comment on screen, like Chase Oliver here with the $10 super chat donation. Thank you so much, Chase. Appreciate it, good brother. Who says, who you guys trust to have your back between Michael Nakazawa, Pat Buck, and Brandon Cutler in the fight? Jesse?
By default, Pat Buck.
Yeah,
the comedy aspect from Nakazawa and Cutler, I don't necessarily trust them. I don't think either one of them are majoring any type of black belt status.
You don't know. I think Michael Nakazawa just plays the bumbling idiot. I don't think he's a real one in real life.
I'll go Pat Buck though, by default.
Fair. Josh?
There's nobody on that list. I'll go with Larry the Dog.
I got Larry the Dog for 300. Now I'm just saying, you know, agree with him, hate him, love him, I don't care. Everyone needs a friend like Ace Steel, man. He biting motherfuckers for you. Like, let's go.
Yo, that's it's crazy. Yo, that's the part that I take from all of this, right? That they're saying that Omega saved the dog, right? But yet Omega got bit by a human and not the dog.
That was the other part of the fight. Great stuff by the people over at Fightful Select. $5 a month, great offer. But they did a complete write-up of everything, and they said the elite side still were in disbelief that Omega just went in there to save the dog and got bit by a human. Great stuff. You can't make this stuff up, ladies and gentlemen. Vala B with the super chat donation. Thank you, good brother. Saying my hope is that Punk and the Elite do apologize to the talent and everyone backstage and work towards rebuilding trust with all the talent. Totally agree with you there. They need more harmony and good vibes. Apparently, they've been feeling that as of late, but we have more to talk about with Kenny Omega when we get to the news rundown of why some people backstage might not like Kenny for other reasons. We will get to that for sure, but thank you for the super chat donation. Vala B, Alan Weinstein, ALW with the super chat donation, and he says, so tired of Punk drama, never happy someone is hurt, but glad he is not going to be on TV for a while. Do you think it is a benefit or hindrance that Punk is going to be out for so long, Jesse?
A benefit. I think it's going to put more of a focus on the World Championship because we mentioned Hangman playing second fiddle, and who did he play second fiddle to? CM Punk, MJF. That was way bigger than anything Hangman had going on. Hangman Adam Cole, I like it, but you give me Punk MJF in such a heated and very invested storyline in the Blackpool Combat Club forming from a Danielson Moxley kind of 1 month program that led into that. We wanted to see that more than we wanted to see Hangman Page's world title run. So I truly believe that if you can get order restored, put the emphasis on the championship and start building up your mid card, I think that's kind of lost in the shuffle. Separate a couple of those upper mid carders and get them to the main event level. So when guys like Punk and Omega come back from injury, they're going to have new, fresh opponents too. That's something that's kind of lost in the shuffle, is that mid card is full of about 20 to 25 guys that you need to put the rocket to at least 3 or 4 of them and get them to that main event status.
Yeah, we've already been seeing it lately with Darby kind of getting used more, and Darby had kind of been lost in the shuffle over the last couple of weeks. But so I do agree with you. What is going to help for this bloated roster we've been talking about all year? I think that's going to be the real benefit of Punk and the Elite being away for so long. But we got more to talk about from what we missed. Let's talk about AEW Rampage from last night. You had Samoa Joe defeat Josh Woods to retain the Ring of Honor Television World Championship in the main event. Post-match, Woods and Tony Nese jumped Joe until TNT champion Wardlow made the save to set up a tag team match for next week's AEW Rampage Grand Slam. Speaking of which, Darby Allin beat Matt Hardy in the opener, and then post-match, House of Black attacked Matt Hardy and challenged Darby Allin and Sting to a tag team no DQ match for next week's Rampage Grand Slam. Yeah, Chris Jericho challenged Claudio Castagnoli for the ROH World title at AEW Dynamite Grand Slam. Penelope Ford defeated Willow Nightingale in one-on-one competition, and you also had Eddie Kingston challenge Sammy Guevara at AEW Rampage Grand Slam next week in New York. I thought that this was the best news of the show because it shows that AEW is not going to shy away from backstage drama, and they will deliver on a match that they've been teasing for so long. What did you think, Jesse?
Bring it. Kingston and Guevara have been saying for a long time that Eddie Kingston needs to be thrown in that main event bubble. And I don't necessarily know if it's his backstage antics are the reason, or just because he's so outspoken as to why he hasn't hit that main event level yet, because the crowd responses that guy gets is in the top 3. This is something that, I mean, he was kind of a sort of a hidden indie gem, but you're starting to realize that it's just because of his personality and how outspoken he is part of the reason why maybe a lot of management has kind of had some troubles and issues kind of keeping him up here. So I'm very happy to see that this is being rejuvenated. Sammy needs something to rejuvenate his character. I don't know if it's necessarily separating him and Tay off screen, because as soon as they went on screen, both of them just went straight down, and getting that go away heat, which is something that Sammy hadn't had. He's such an electric performer, and now everyone just wants him to go away because of the persona that he's playing. I guess real quick then, before we move to Josh, would be Willow Nightingale. I would like to see them sign her. I don't believe that. There we go. Exactly. Sign Willow Nightingale, please. You could totally build her up over the next 6 months to a year to be that performer that takes the TBS championship from Jade Cargill. And a big reason why is because Chris Statlander's now in the background with an injury. Who else could be a credible threat? You could maybe rebuild Athena. That's a possibility too. I think those are the two ladies I would like to see take that TBS title. And I guess there is one more thing. Jericho and Claudio, again, with that Jericho rejuvenation in 2022 from a wrestling standpoint. Give me this, because this is going to be a much better match than probably anything that was presented over the last 8 or 9 years. I believe they've battled head-to-head twice in the WWE. So if you can just give me a big Claudio win over Jericho, 15, 20-minute main event, I'm all for it.
Hey, you want to get on TV for Ring of Honor? A good way to do that was be putting the ROH World Championship on Chris Jericho. Just saying. Not to say that it's a foregone conclusion Claudio's going to win, but I do agree. 2022 has been the revival of Chris Jericho. I would arguably say his 3 best matches in AEW have been against Jon Moxley at Quake by the Lake, Bryan Danielson this week on Dynamite, and Eddie Kingston at Revolution all this year. Josh, any thoughts on Rampage before Rampage wrap up? I know you guys are doing that later today, but any thoughts you want to let us know here?
No, I mean, it was a decent episode. I liked some of the match announcements they did. The Kingston and Guevara one was really good. But besides that, I mean, it was a decent show. I know you, my boy Blue, said Willow was robbed. I mean, I don't know. I was fine with the win. Penelope Ford winning. I think she needs, that momentum herself, because she's been there for so long. She's been there since the company started, and they haven't really done nothing for her. So, I mean, and then she's also gotten better too. I think a lot of people haven't noticed that she's gotten way better the last couple of years. So, I was fine with that win. I think as for Claudio versus Jericho, I think that's going to be a good match as well. I did like the promo exchange. I think Claudio has gotten better with his talking. He seems a lot more comfortable now than he did in WWE talking, But yeah, besides that, I mean, it's a good show. I like the match announcements and, building up to that 2-hour Rampage next week.
8 matches on that 2-hour Rampage. We'll do a quick rapid fire predictions for Rampage and Dynamite Grand Slam later in the show, but we're going to talk about the other show from last night, fellas. WWE SmackDown. They had Logan Paul making his WWE return and invited Roman Reigns to a press conference today in Las Vegas, alluding to challenging Reigns for the Undisputed Universal Championship. Paul Heyman made his return along with the Bloodline to interrupt. This led to Sami Zayn trying to be the voice of reason and being sucker punched by Paul before facing Ricochet in a fun opener, but lost thanks to Jey Uso getting involved, getting too emotional in the matchup. This also led to Solo Sikoa taking notice and claiming Jey is off his game, and he invited Sami Zayn to be in his corner, who helped Solo defeat Madcap Moss to retain the NXT North American Championship. Yes, the North American title is being defended on SmackDown. Bayley defeated Raquel Rodriguez. Post-match damage control jumped Raquel until Shotzi made the save and turned babyface. Okay. And then the Brawling Brutes beat the New Day, Imperium, and Hit Row in a super fun main event to face the Usos for the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships next week on SmackDown. Really good show and a big step up from last week. Jesse, what did you think of SmackDown, and what do you think overall of the Triple H era of WWE so far?
It's improved. I have said this for the last month, that the WWE's product has been in the grave for a little while now from a performance perspective. And if you all are wrestling fans from the 90s, if you remember that, I believe it was the Royal Rumble where the Undertaker's hand shot through the ground in the casket. That's what the main roster has done over the last month with Triple H. There is improvement. There is still kind of some weird things, like you just mentioned, Shotzi turning face, that kind of didn't really make sense. But continuity in the storylines, where that's what's been missing, is Vince McMahon essentially did this by himself in terms of the booking. He would listen to some of the ideas, but you would hear reports specifically from Fightful of ripping scripts up, not knowing what's going to happen 15 to 20 minutes prior. Now you have things that are etched and sketched in place. You know what you're going to do. Logan Paul, Roman Reigns. I don't know. I think this is okay for a one-off. There'll be a couple of title matches for Roman Reigns leading into 2023. I guess this is fine. You might put some more eyes on the product. It's going to Saudi Arabia. I suppose. I guess from a long-term perspective, how many of those Logan Paul fans are going to be drawn to come back to the WWE product once this is over? I'm not 100% sure. Anytime you can get Ricochet on my TV, I'm all for that, please. And that match was fun. I do agree. I do enjoy the Sami Zayn Bloodline deal. I think this is great. So to have some ruffles and the feathers with the Usos and Sammy, great call on that. Solo Sikoa defending the NXT North American title. I think the last time we saw something like that happen was when, speaking of Saudi Arabia, we were talking about 2019 when they were over there over Halloween and they had to call up almost the entire NXT roster, and you got an Adam Cole, Daniel Bryan main event out of thin air. Wow, how good was that? Go watch that on YouTube, by the way. If there's anything else from this show, I'm enjoying the continuity. I'm truly enjoying, I guess, this tag team ordeal too, where we're looking at Ridge Holland and I'm going to call him Pete Dunne. That'll be cool. That'll be a nice little one-off because, I mean, the Usos have had this title for, over a year now. I think I don't see that reign anytime soon, especially ending to a team like Ridge Holland and Pete Dunne. Just not at this moment yet. Maybe we're talking about the Young Bucks in 2024. Maybe they end it. I have no idea. But yeah, that's my synopsis of SmackDown.
Yeah, I like the choice of the Brawling Brutes to win because they were like the tweeners of the teams. You had two babyface duos with New Day and Hit Row. You had the heel in Imperium. Could have went with Imperium here, but I like Brawling Brutes getting something after their good match with Imperium the week following. And yeah, Sami Zayn and the Bloodline. I won't go as far as EBB, who says Bloodline and Sami story is best thing going on right now in wrestling, in my opinion. Phenomenal stuff. I won't go that far. Saying in wrestling, because you still got the Blackpool Combat Club with Moxley and Danielson doing some great work in AEW, and there's other stuff in AEW as well as New Japan that I'm really enjoying right now. But as far as pure entertainment storyline, this is the best thing in WWE by far.
One other thing before, I'm assuming Josh should talk about this too. Bayley's not a tag team champion, and if I recall, she's supposed to be exclusive to the Raw brand. So that was kind of a weird one-off last night.
No one's exclusive. I didn't even sneeze when Bayley came out because I was like, no one's been exclusive. You had KO on SmackDown. You got Sami Zayn on Raw with the Bloodline. So it's like they don't matter. At least with Sami Zayn, he's connected to the Bloodline. The Bloodline can go on either show. And at least with Bayley, she's connected to the Women's Tag Team Champions. They can go on either show. So I'll accept that as the reasoning, but they don't even try to explain a reasoning anymore for that. But we do have reasoning for why we got this Logan Paul challenging of Roman Reigns, the press conference going on today. WWE Undisputed Universal Champion Roman Reigns recently joined the social media influencer and WWE star Logan Paul this week on his Impulsive podcast. After the episode was released, Roman Reigns noted that he brought relevancy to Logan Paul's show, asking his advocate Paul Heyman to handle Paul. It only escalated from there, and now Triple H wants the two to settle their differences. According to what happened after Roman Reigns left the show, Logan Paul indicated that he could beat Roman Reigns in a matchup. This led to Reigns initially tweeting, "I bless the world and bring the island of relevancy to your show. You and your boys acknowledge me, and as soon as I'm gone, you run your mouth. Wise man, handle him." At Heyman Hustle, Paul Heyman responded, "At WWE Roman Reigns, I am in receipt of your command, and I shall indeed bestow upon at Logan Paul the wisdom he so desperately lacks. My hashtag tribal chief, please consider this handled." Paul then responded to Heyman, writing, "Exactly how you plan on handling me? This led to WWE COO Triple H extending an invitation to Logan Paul for SmackDown so Reigns and Paul can handle their issues in person. And then WWE reportedly has big plans for Logan Paul, as the Wrestling Observer newsletters Dave Meltzer reported on Figure 4 Online that a press conference was taking place today in Las Vegas, which will announce that Paul will face Roman Reigns at WWE Crown Jewel on November 5th. The match will headline the pay-per-view, and then ahead of Friday SmackDown, Paul teased a massive announcement. Triple H invited Paul to the show, like we said before, and he appeared and he announced that the press conference was going down, but he didn't come out and forwardly say that he was challenging Roman Reigns quite yet. Josh, what do you think about Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns main event of Sweet Saudi Bunny 8?
I mean, I don't know what to think about that. But no, but I actually like the fact I like the fact how they played into it when it came to the podcast appearance, to Roman Reigns feel like he got disrespected to lead up to this. I actually like that, because I think what it was too is that a lot of people didn't know about it until SmackDown happened, right? So a lot of people assume like, oh, this was dirt sheets. Oh, like, you know, I don't like when news is being reported when it hasn't happened yet. But I had to tell people, I was like, yo, this all started for Roman Reigns. Like, Roman Reigns is the one that pretty much initiated the challenge. Like, it came from him. So it's not like there was nothing leaked. There was nothing, you know, there was nothing like rumored. It was, this is how it started. And I actually liked the fact that they did that. I mean, honestly, the match itself, I think it could be fun. You know, if Logan did what he did at SummerSlam, you know, it's gonna be a fun match. You know, we're not looking for something that's 5 stars. You know, if it's passable and WWE makes a lot of money off of it, that's all that matters to them. So, hey, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm not too flex over it. I think Logan Paul is talented in this, and Roman Reigns is the biggest matchup he could possibly get. But Jesse, what do you think about them very overtly, despite him clearly having the skills of a heel on the microphone, they overtly made sure to position Logan Paul as the babyface in this feud? Do you think that's going to work?
In Saudi Arabia, maybe. Does Saudi Arabia even know who Logan Paul is? That'll be my next question as well. I don't really know, because they continuously they brought back Triple H and Shawn Michaels out of retirement. They brought back Goldberg quite a few times, so they might still be stuck in the 1999 era of professional wrestling. Logan Paul and Roman Reigns going one-on-one, with Logan Paul having one singles match and a tag team match under his belt. I guess this kind of goes to show that while Triple H has been doing a much better job lately of, you know, just making some coherence and everything makes sense, there just needs to be a pecking order in the lines of the World Championship picture. I do agree. I think from a publicity perspective and a one-off match where we know Roman's going to handle business, that part will be fine. I think a huge problem is Roman and Brock ran through the entire WWE male roster, and over the last 2 years, to the point where who's left that's credible, and the only person right now is sitting on the sidelines with a torn pec. So they need to find a match or two just to get to that point with Roman Reigns, and this will be just perfect for a one-off. It's in Saudi Arabia, blood money, as you alluded to earlier, Sid. So it's fine.
I think they have options, honestly, now, especially with the work Triple H has just done in just over a month. You have Kevin Owens, who they've rebuilt and got him reacclimated into the top storyline. Seth Rollins keeps reminding us that Roman Reigns, he's the only guy he hasn't beat in this 700-day reign, despite having a matchup against. And Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley's the biggest one. He owns a victory over Brock Lesnar to win the WWE Championship this year and didn't get beat to lose the title at Elimination Chamber, and he still hasn't faced Roman Reigns when they went 2-2. They went 1-1 in their first go around with each other when Lashley returned to the company. So there's I feel like there is more than what they're alluding to, and I understand the frustration of some fans that see Logan Paul in this situation and be like, what the hell is Triple H doing? Like you said, you're reshuffling the deck, you're restacking the deck. You've done that. It's time to now put them in a position to succeed and put them in there with Roman Reigns. Yeah, they might lose, but at least they get a main event spot.
Yeah, and also what it is too is that because they're going with this historic reign of Roman Reigns, you know, you have to find ways to make the challengers, you know, credible. You know, that's what they did with Drew McIntyre, to the point that people actually believe Drew had a chance of beating Roman Reigns. And, you know, I think that's what Triple H does very well, you know, compared to Vince. You know, it would have been Vince for that match, everything would have been flat, to the point that it's like you don't believe anything, right? Which I'm not saying that that's what they should do with Logan Paul, you know, because this is a filler match, you know, which I'm okay with because it's going to continue his reign. But when it comes to like the guys you mentioned, like KO, Lashley, Seth, you know, guys who haven't had that opportunity, that's the best way to do it. You just have to make your challengers more credible, to the point that there's some, you know, there's some belief that, oh shit, Roman Reigns could lose this title tonight. That's what he just needs to do.
Lashley, I will 100% give you, Sid. That is for sure. I do agree with that. I honestly think he's the only one, though. They have done a wonderful job with Rollins and Owens trying to rehash the characters. But in my mind, what I have is Owens losing, I believe, 3 consecutive times to Roman Reigns. I also have Seth Rollins losing 3 consecutive times to Cody Rhodes. Again, both characters are great. I just think that there still needs to be some more repackaging and some more buildup before I can take them seriously again as main event players, championship holders.
That is fair. That is fair. And speaking of championship holders and people that have been top stars, it's that time of the year again. Pro Wrestling Illustrated dropped this week with their PWI 500 list of the best wrestlers for 2022, basically from the time period of July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. And to the surprise of many, or not the surprise of many, to WWE fans rejoicing everywhere, WWE Undisputed Universal Champion Roman Reigns took the top spot this year. This is the second time that the Tribal Chief has topped the PWI 500, also awarded number 1 in 2016, and he has taken home the number 2 spot in the 2021 list. But here's the top 10, and we got to have a little quick discussion about this, because I will rant first of why I'm upset about this. But number 1, Roman Reigns. Number 2, Kazuchika Okada, the Rainmaker, IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, won the G1 in this time period. CM Punk returned to professional wrestling after 7 years, top draw for AEW World Champion during the time period. Hangman Adam Page, AEW World Champion, classic matches, been a part of the some of the top drawing AEW pay-per-views. Bobby Lashley, WWE champion during the time period, United States champion as well, so good stuff there. Cody Rhodes, the big return to WWE at WrestleMania 38, winning the TNT championship, 5-star matches with Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins, great stuff there, despite the injury at the tail end of the time period. Bryan Danielson came to AEW, tore it up, 5-star classics with Eddie Kingston, Minoru Suzuki, the Hangman Adam Page, big stuff all around, big matches, great matches all around. Vikingo, Triple A's mega champion, one of the top stars in Triple H, one of the best high flyers in the world. This is when he gets a little iffy here. Big E won the Money in the Bank and the WWE Championship. Yeah. I love Big E. What the fuck, though? And number 10, Jonathan Gresham, ROH World Champion, pure champion in the same time period. Okay, fair enough. How the fuck, Jesse? How the fuck, Josh? How the fuck everyone watching, whether it's live, on demand, I don't care. I don't care if you're watching, you're listening on Spotify, iTunes. How the fuck did Jon Moxley not make this top 10 fucking list? Do you know how many times Jon Moxley was pinned in the time period of July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022?
One?
Zero!
Even
He was consistent
Zero.
in 4 different companies. All Elite Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Game Changer Wrestling. This man premiered across the independent scene 0 times. It was pinned. He lost 1 time in a Texas death match to Lance Archer to lose the IWGP United States champion. But he was the IWGP United States champion in this time period. Almost a year-long reign as GCW world champion, AEW interim world champion. He won at the tail end of this run, and of course this run throughout 2022 with classic matches against Willow, against Bryan Danielson, against Chris Jericho, against CM Punk. The list goes against Will Ospreay. The list goes on and on with Jon Moxley this year. It is blasphemous that Jon Moxley is not on this list, because he has been a top star. Like, I know PWI 500 is keeping in the kayfabe, but even in a kayfabe sense, Moxley has been one of the top stars of AEW. Big E making this list. Like, the only thing you can say against Moxley is, oh, he missed a few months trying to get his life together. Big E's been out since March. He lost the WWE Championship in January. We really taking into account a nice little 3-month reign or a 3-month run of him winning Money in the Bank and then cashing it in, winning the championship, and we are validating that over Jon Moxley's superb level of work? This is atrocious. Jesse, any issues with the top 10? What do you think?
That's the biggest one by a mile. I think you hit the nail on the head with the Big E being out for as long as Moxley. For those who are saying Moxley was out for a little while, it was 3 months. And again, he's defended championships against a who's who that's not in the WWE. I mean, go look at that list again, please, because he's in New Japan. He went through Tanahashi as well. Satoshi Kojima, Minoru Suzuki, the entire AEW roster, defeated Danielson. I mean, you name it, he's ran through them. He should be somewhere in the top 5. I mean, I'm okay with Roman at 1. That's fine. He hasn't lost. Cool. Okada at 2. I'm okay with that as well. G1 winner, had the title until Dominion, and that was a little bit after the voting period. My only other beef with this list outside of course, and Big E has a huge soft spot in my heart, so I definitely agree with you there. Maybe flopped it to you. The other one would be Will Ospreay. I just think the guy's won a ton everywhere he's been. G1 finalist, which again was a little bit after the grading period, but I would have liked to seen him somewhere in maybe in the 10 to 15 range. I've seen clips of Elio Del Vikingo. And for those who are saying that Gresham shouldn't be in the top 10, I actually am going to disagree with you. If you look at his Ring of Honor world title run after the company folded, he defended that thing everywhere. He was a poster child. It just wasn't highly publicized. So I could definitely see him planting there in that bottom part of at 10. If you want to move him down to like 11 or 12, cool, but I have no issues with pretty much the rest of that list.
And people love when I address people in the live chat, even if they didn't put give us a super chat to address it. And EBB, ever since Jimmy has infiltrated your mind and negatived up your mind, you've been saying a lot of stupid shit in the chat. But this might be the stupidest shit you have said in the chat, because you didn't do your research before trying to drop facts in our chat. So here we go. He says, from June last year to this year, Mox wasn't champion at all, only winning it on June 26th this year. You literally contradicted yourself in one sentence. You literally just said in this sentence, let me read it again. From June last year to June this year, Mox wasn't champion at all, only winning on June 26th this year. Dude, I will repeat, the criteria is from July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, meaning that Moxley won the interim world championship at the end of the fucking criteria. He was off for 4 months. Once again, this is why, people, you need to do your research and fact check before you comment. Type, you think before you type, and research before you type. This man went out of action in October. He missed November, December, came back in January. He missed 2 months. Big E's been out since March. Since March! Are you fucking kidding me? I don't like to scream on this goddamn show, but do your research before you type. His opponents weren't massive wins in that time. This man beat Minoru Suzuki, Will Ospreay, put on a 5-star classic star-making performance with Wheeler Yuta and beat his ass. You beat JB Bryan Danielson, beat Hiroshi Tanahashi. Are you fucking kidding me? Are you just not paying attention? That's double the amount of people you put in this comment. Do better, EBB. Like Annika said. Like Annika said to you, baby boy, just take this L. You should have just listened. I'm done now. Josh, any comments on the PWI 500?
I mean, I'm not gonna top that. But I'm not gonna top that. But I mean, I agree with you. When it comes to Moxley not being a top 10, but Big E being number 9, I don't get that at all. Because even when Big E won the title, right, he didn't have a great title run, and he also lost more as a champion than he was so when it comes to that, I think that's where they're when it comes to the PWI. For the most part, I agree with the list for the most part, but it's those little things. Like I felt Moxley should have been in top 10. Ospreay should have been top 10. But I understand like Gresham being number 10. I understand that because like like what was said, he was defending the title everywhere he was going. He was defending the title. It just wasn't publicized, which doesn't mean that it's not being defended. You know what I mean? But when it comes to the Moxley and Big E thing, that's where I think they kind of falter at, because they kind of, the whole list is supposed to be kayfabe, right? Which I get, but they also, counting wins and losses. So by Big E winning the title, you're pretty much saying like, oh, by him winning the title, that overshadowed that, that's more than what Mox has done, which is completely false, in my opinion. You could have a great year without winning the title. Seth Rollins, the year that Seth Rollins won the PWI, he wasn't a world champion. Remember, he wasn't a world champion when he won it. So it's very possible to have a great year without a title. So I don't buy into that crap when it comes to that. Like, I understood why he was number 1, because he had a ton of great matches and he was super consistent. So that's where it comes down to. When it comes to Big E wasn't consistent. Nothing. It wasn't his fault, right? No fault to his own. But then he had the neck injury, and then he's been out ever since, like you said, since March. He's been out for the few months. So if you're trying to use the argument of Moxley being out, but not Big E, then that's a problem right there, because that's a big contradiction right there, because it's like, oh, this guy was out for this long, but then you have this guy who's been out even longer, and he's probably, God forbid, his career might be over. So when it comes to that.
Yeah, it feels like a lifetime achievement award.
Big time. I had a second to think about this now. I would drop Cody down just a hair too. Malachi Black took his soul in the first couple of months of that voting period.
That's true.
By the way,
That
he was near the bottom of the barrel, and I guess on top of that, like kind of the TNT flip-flop deal. We look at his WWE run, which he's been, I believe, undefeated since. I mean, that's fair. Maybe you could drop him down. I think looking in the top of my head now, I would probably put Moxley. Probably in the Lashley, Hangman, CM Punk range. You could go 3 to 6 would kind of be, you can keep Roman, you can keep Okada. That's perfectly fine. And to your point of Seth Rollins, by the way, being number 1 without a world title, 1997, Dean Malenko was the number 1 rated PWI 500 wrestler. And the only thing, I think the only 2 titles he held were the Cruiserweight and the United States Championship. So, I mean, yeah, kayfabe is one thing. Moxley's win-loss record deserves to be up there somewhere between, I'd say, 3 and 6.
And based off of, all the criteria, like it's win-loss record, your accomplishment, your status within the promotion, your level of competition against a diverse amount of competitors. No one's been more diverse with their competition than Jon Moxley. And he has, in fact, like that's why I said for the people in the chat, do your research before you start typing. He has been champion. He's been GCW world champion since almost the beginning of the criteria till now. Yeah. So just because it's not a world title that you follow doesn't mean it's not a world title.
Because even in perspective, right? If you really think about it, right? It's like even if you look at Roman Reigns' current run right now, right? I felt his run last year was a lot stronger than it is this year. Big part of that is because he's become more part-time. But then also, if you look at some of his matches, he didn't have some of the strongest matches throughout the year. He had the match with Brock at WrestleMania, which wasn't a good match in my opinion. But then he kind of bounced back. He had a great match with Riddle. SummerSlam ended up being a surprise. A lot of factors came into that, but ended up being a surprise. His match with Drew was great. But even if you look at Roman Reigns, right, you could say like, oh yeah, he didn't have a strong year. But when you've been the longest reigning Universal Champion in their history, been champion for over 2 years, and being the undisputed champion, that's why he has number 1, and that's why I'm okay when it comes to that. So like that's what a lot of people had to look into as well. Like, hey, he didn't have the strongest year, but because he's been on the top, he's the face of the company. That's why he's number 1. And that's something I'm okay with.
Yeah. Cena, Finn Balor, Kevin Owens. I think those are some of the names that were in that voting period too. So yeah, I mean, again, undefeated for the longest time, actually since December 2019 in my home state of Minnesota, where he lost to Baron Corbin of all people. It's the last time that he actually had a singles loss. So if we don't count house shows here, and to be honest, I think they did count house shows because there were a lot of times where he was winning on house shows too. So that probably went into effect because his activity level, if you really want to nitpick, you could even drop Roman a couple of spots just because he wasn't as active over this voting period.
But that's the thing with PWI is that a lot of kayfabe is in it. You're standing in the company, your accomplishments, and Roman could afford to get like a 6 out of 10 in match quality because he's 10 out of 10 in all the kayfabes.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah. That's what it comes down to. Say like if he was just Universal Champion, and say like if the run was currently how it is now, he probably would be either 2 or 3 just because of that. But because he has that undisputed title, that puts him over the top.
Exactly. But we had also what we missed this week, WWE Raw, like you teased earlier, Jesse. They did 1.7 million viewers, so down by 300,000 viewers, thanks to going up against Monday Night Football and the Emmys. The show featured Dakota Kai and Io Sky defeating Raquel Rodriguez and Aaliyah to win the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. You also had Kevin Owens cut an amazing promo on Austin Theory, team telling him to step up, and got into a huge brawl with Mr. Money in the Bank. This followed Theory attacking Johnny Gargano with his Money in the Bank briefcase after Gargano beat Chad Gable in a very good TV matchup in his comeback for the first time in 9 months in the WWE ring. He had Bianca Belair beat Sonya Deville to retain the Raw Women's Championship. Finn Balor defeated Matt Riddle thanks to Seth Rollins getting involved, and Edge beat Dominic Mysterio by disqualification when the Judgment Day interfered in the main event. Any highlights or things you want to mention from Raw this week, Jesse?
The women's tag team title situation and having them flip flop that so fast was a head scratcher. that still shows that there is still a little Vince McMahon inside of Triple H's head. I think that's really the only thing that I can strongly say wasn't the best thing on this show. Johnny Gargano, by the way, after however many months, I think you said 9 of being inactive to having obviously his son, which is the biggest blessing in the world to him, didn't look like he lost a beat. And I mean, that's probably going to foreshadow to something later with me. And because if you give me a match like that on TV with Gargano and Gable with the chain wrestling, I'm going to be hooked from the very beginning and just glued. I'm not getting up from my seat. That's the stuff I pay to see. I love that. Otherwise, the rest of it was okay. I mean, with like Finn Balor finally getting a win, which was kind of weird, but again, it helped, right? See, again, that's kind of the McMahon and Triple H's head deal. So again, top, bottom, it's still, I mean, again, Triple H is doing a good job, but there is still some Vince McMahon inside that man's brain. I'm sorry.
There's a little Vince McMahon in all of us. Like there's a little Slim Shady in all of us. Speaking of Triple H, though, since you brought him up, Jesse, ever since becoming the head of creative and talent relations for WWE, Triple H has brought back several stars to the company, including Braun Strowman, Dakota Kai, Hit Row, Karrion Kross, Scarlett, and Dexter Lumis. According to the latest Wrestling Observer newsletter, Triple H has more surprises coming who are not people currently being talked about. No other details were given about who the surprise may be, but Josh, who would you think? Name someone you could see returning to WWE that hasn't been prominent in reports as of late.
I don't know how his what do you call that? No compete clause is, but once it's out, I do see Malachi Black going back to WWE. That's probably the main name I could say. I could see going back just because, I know he has like the mental issues, which I completely don't want to take away from him when it comes to that. But, the person who focuses on what you see behind the scenes, that part of me is kind of like, hey, Triple H came back in power and now all of a sudden he wanted out.
I'll say it, Josh. It's suspect as fuck. It's suspect as fuck.
And it's like, hey, that's what he wanted. Hey, that he's pretty much gonna get what he wants. I do see him going back. I think that's the main name I see going back, just because of the timing of everything. What he said, timing of everything. I see him going back.
What about you, Jesse?
I'm at a loss and a little confused. I think Malachi Black would probably be the only name, and what I wish that AEW would have done with him was stick to that ass-kicking gimmick as opposed to the rambling Bray Wyatt-esque promos and then all of a sudden kind of going Undertaker-ish with that character when you could have just stuck the course with the way you had gone for the first 3 to 4 months, and he'd likely be in the main event right now, in my personal opinion, with AEW if he had just stuck with that gimmick. But I really can't think of anybody else that's out there that's huge from a free agency perspective that no one's really talking about, just because people are talking about Bray Wyatt. So I'm guessing that's probably going to be a foregone conclusion. But yeah, I would probably say Malachi Black. Maybe it's going to be later rather than sooner just because of the mental issues. But he's going to be back with his wife. That could be another thing too. And then maybe somebody that no one's talking about, I suppose, and I have no idea what his contract situation is right now, is Andrade, quite possibly, just because Charlotte's there. That'd be the only one. But that, again, remains to be seen. I'm just speculating at this point.
Yeah, I think those are ones to talk about. One that hasn't been talked about, that has been talking more about WWE lately, Rob Van Dam. People tend to think about released WWE stars, but I think about also legends, because one thing Triple H has done as of late is kind of use legends in certain spots, whether it's Trish in Toronto, Edge in Toronto, Kurt Angle in Pittsburgh. He could do something like that with Rob Van Dam in, like, say, a Detroit Or he could just bring him in for like a short program to put over the next high flyer, whether that's a Ricochet or someone like that.
Yeah, with
interesting stuff like that.
Yeah, with RVD, he's in an interesting situation just because like when it comes to RVD, the reason why he hasn't gone back to WWE, as in like, remember how he had that deal where he would wrestle for 3 months and then go away for a long time and then come back for a few months, and then part of it too is because I know he suffered like a really bad concussion a couple years ago to the point that he can't. I know what he lost vision in one of his eyes. So he said himself during like his court hearing, like when he had like his divorce hearing, that the reason why WWE wouldn't pretty much hire him again as an active wrestler is because the doctors won't clear him, so he won't be cleared to wrestle. So that's the only thing that would be iffy when it comes to that. But then again, we've seen weird stuff. Corey Graves had a concussion; he was forced to retire, and then now all of a sudden he could wrestle again. So
Danielson,
Danielson,
yeah. So all these guys were never supposed to wrestle again.
Yeah, so like I could see that being a foregone conclusion as well. So I mean. But yeah, like when it comes to that would be pretty interesting just because when they had him last time for the Hall of Fame stuff, when they had him backstage, he was pretty entertaining. And I think him and Matt Riddle could have like a good program just for them, them being funny.
Think about that. Even if it's not a program, them as a tag team would be fantastic. And that would help. That would help with Rob Van Dam being older in age, put him in a tag team with Riddle where Riddle can do most of the work for him. That works. So, but someone is going to be doing a little bit of work on their own now. That's changed his position in the company. PW Insider reports that WWE has moved Kevin Owens officially to the babyface side of their internal Raw roster this week. While Kevin Owens had already turned babyface a while ago, WWE was still listing him as a heel eternally until this week, which I'm all here for. Kevin Owens on the babyface side. I've been saying that for months.
It's just funny because I like how they push like, oh yeah, he's going back to being the prize fighter. And when he was the prize fighter, he was a heel. So having him as a prize fighter as a face is even more funny because he's still presentable either way.
Exactly. It's the same. It's like, hey, people gonna love him, people gonna hate him. Just put him out there. We got WWE NXT 2.0 for possibly the last time. We had the 1-year anniversary of NXT 2.0. They did 728,000 viewers. The show features Solo Sikoa defeating Carmelo Hayes to win the NXT North American Championship. Melo was supposed to face Wes Lee based on a fan vote, but Hayes and Trick Williams attacked to take him out before Sikoa returned to answer the challenge. So now we have a SmackDown star holding the NXT North American Championship. Pretty Deadly beat the Creed brothers in a steel cage match via interference from Damian Kemp to retain the NXT Tag Team Championships. Yeah, Cameron Grimes and Joe Gacy beat Tony D'Angelo and Stax, but Grimes didn't want to join the schism, so they jumped him after the matchup. And Alba Fire stepped up as the next challenger for the NXT Women's Championship with Mandy Rose interrupting Mandy Rhodes' promo. And it appears at the end of the show, they did a huge presentation, Shawn Michaels voiceover, because WWE has brought a new logo to NXT. No more splattering of paint. It appears as if WWE is doing away with the old logo, introducing a new one at the end of this week's show, which was the 1-year anniversary of NXT 2.0, featuring a video with a voiceover from Shawn Michaels that saw the 2.0 logo turn into a new one that is more reminiscent of the old black and gold logo. In fairness, it's not yet clear if this is a permanent logo. As of now, the logo is unchanged on NXT Twitter account profile picture and no changes as of yet on WWE.com. But what did you think about this new logo, and has Triple H saved NXT, Jesse?
Before we go to that, I'm going to go 30 seconds on RVD. Going back to that, yes, first Wrestling Saturday Nitro. I was there. He actually ended up teaming with Dante Martin by the way, in that main event. They were supposed to have a match. They ended up teaming against Sunny Kiss and Ari Daivari, who is a legend with First Wrestling. I believe he was their first WrestlePalooza champion. So I think him in a tag team with Riddle would be awesome. And just with the concussion and the eye issues, I mean, he's been a huge proponent of marijuana and CBD. CBD, he has his own company now. That's actually going to probably heal him. So that'd be a great possibility to see him back with the WWE. Now NXT 2.0. I feel like you're throwing you're trying to dress up. I can't really think of the analogy right now, but NXT 1.5, you still have a lot of work to do just because of half of their talent's green. So I think what you're going to do right now is you mentioned Cameron Grimes. My goodness, would I love to see that guy maybe get a world title run with this in the NXT in this brand new kind of deal. You have, because Carmelo Hayes, for example, I think we're going to see him elevated to the top sooner rather than later as well, possibly being the guy to dethrone Braun Breaker, or you bring him to the main roster, one or the other, because the guy in the kind of Nickelodeon version of NXT doesn't really belong there. He should be either with the reincarnation, which you're doing now, or should be on the main roster. As for the last thing I'll talk about is, I believe that's the former Kaylee Ray, correct? Yep.
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, again, if you're going to go back to this iteration of being more like your main roster, I think she'd be perfect to unseat Mandy Rose and maybe give Toxic Attraction, maybe move them up to the WWE main roster and focus a little more on either the development of what you have down there, or you can even take a star or two from Raw or SmackDown and bring them back down and kind of give them kind of a nice little change of pace. But again, I think it needs not a serious makeover, but it definitely needs a makeover because, again, half and half. You have the roster half green, half full of talent. So
I think it's
going to be a while
to what it used to be, what it originally was set out to be in 2012, where Triple H had like a handful of independent stars. He had like 2 to 3 to 4 handfuls of green talent. He mixed them into one and they became NXT, and more independent talent was signed. They eventually came onto the WWE network, and then a year after that they had Takeover Brooklyn and had to fill big arenas now for takeovers, and that's when the waters got muddied. And then instead of becoming the developmental where you got a handful of independent stars and mix them up with a crop of your young green talent, they became a super indie. They became Ring of Honor, PWG on steroids in arenas, and they were repeating PWG and Ring of Honor feuds, and developing this women's division that had great workers and once in a lifetime generational talent. But it became a super indie for a while, and then when it went up against another super indie in AEW, it failed because it was a super indie in a dark warehouse in the CWC and Full Sail in a school, while the other super indie is in the arenas every week, not just for Takeover, every single week, every Wednesday they were going up against that, so they looked inferior. Thus they had to change and revert back to what they used to be. And now I think the 2.0 era, the impact of the era is that it got NXT back to where it needed to be. It needs to be a developmental where you have even the 2.0 era has a bunch of stars that you can see being successful on the main roster for a while, whether it's Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Tiffany Stratton, Roxanne Perez, Cora Jade, the Toxic Attraction. Like, they have a bunch of stars like that, Krssi Waller, Julius Creed, Tony D'Angelo, that has that potential that they can groom and they will become stars on the main roster now. And now they just have to throw some more independent stars into this mix, and they would have the perfect developmental now, in my opinion. Josh, does the new logo entice you to watch NXT?
No, it doesn't. Because I mean, like they still have issues. You know what I mean? When the thing was when it came to NXT Black and Gold, what benefited them, which probably ended up hurting them, was that they signed a bunch of independent stars, right? Give or take. Now they're relying on people you might have not heard of beforehand, a bunch of athletes that they're relying on, people with no wrestling experience that you could definitely see. But they also, a lot of them also need a lot of work, Braun Breaker has gotten better, ever since the slip up with Ciampa, he's gotten better. He's probably the biggest name I could see being their biggest star when it comes, like if he was to go to the main roster, depending on how they use him. I know there's a lot of hype with Nikita Lyons, but she's not very good in the ring. Like every time I've seen her, she's trying new things, but that's also the problem too in general. When you try to do new things and it's not what you do, you probably shouldn't be trying to do it, especially when you're on TV. And I think she falls into that category a lot, where she's trying to do something new, which you could appreciate. But if you can't pull it off, you shouldn't be doing it, especially until you get it done right. But that's the thing when it comes to NXT. Like, there's a lot of faces that they try to do when they were going back to that direction of, having these kids learn stuff. That was the problem, because people got so used to all these big independent stars being in NXT that they kind of reverted back to what they want to be. So right now, I mean, any hopes to trying to hope, that this goes back to being black and gold, I don't think they should put that high expectations yet on the new people. I don't think that's fair to them. I think that will falter their development even more. So I just think they should just have a real game plan, and then just focus on that. And then from there, if it gets great, then you move on to the next step.
There's a reason they moved to Tuesday nights, by the way. Is because they went head-to-head with a super indie that destroyed them. So I feel, I don't know if USA has some involvement in this as well, but maybe going back to an hour, kind of the less is more deal, and kind of hide some of the weaknesses of the younger talent, which was something that Paul Heyman did a phenomenal job with in ECW, was kind of highlighting the strengths and really hiding the weaknesses. I think if Triple H and Shawn Michaels can accentuate the strengths of the greener people on the roster and really hide those weaknesses to the best of their capabilities, that this product will be that should be better, and more people will be more apt to watch.
Absolutely. The final show, what we missed during the week, Impact on AXS-TV. They had the Motor City Machine Guns defeat the Good Brothers in a good first time ever main event, which is possibly the last match in Impact for the Good Brothers, as their contract have expired. Mickie James picked up another win to continue her last rodeo, but she was then challenged by Giselle Shaw for Victory Road, which is next Friday. The OGK defeated Josh Alexander and Rich Swann by DQ to retain the Impact World Tag Team titles, thanks to interference from Heath. This sets up Honor No More versus Alexander, Swann, and Heath in a trios match at Victory Road. Speedball Mike Bailey defeated Mascarada Dorada, the artist formerly known as Grand Metalik, in a super fun opener to retain the X Division title, and it was announced that he would face Delirious for the championship at Victory Road next Friday. We'll do rapid fire predictions for that card as we get into our news rundown here. WWE news. We had per the U.S. Sun. Talk among WWE bosses over Vince McMahon making a farewell appearance at next year's WrestleMania 39 event in Los Angeles. An insider told the U.S. Sun Vince may not be completely done with WWE. There are discussions about how to pay tribute to his achievements of turning the small town wrestling biz into a global business venture. Fans may not always like the way he handles storylines and treated some talent, but his efforts to take the sport to the world cannot be underestimated. His departure was pretty unceremonious in terms of the business behind the scenes, but the sport is about the fans. And as controversial as it might seem, there are fans who feel he deserves a send-off. Not at this moment in time. The suggestion of any celebration seems impossible and would spark potential backlash. However, an acknowledgement of his contributions remains an active discussion among the creative team. Obviously, Vince will not wrestle again. They say obviously, like he didn't wrestle this year, but having an invitation to WrestleMania could be a possibility. One discussion is whether it is too soon for him to be honored at the WWE Hall of Fame event the night before. Automatically, that honor would mean he would walk on stage in front of the LA fans next April. Stephanie McMahon has openly spoken about her father's legacy since his departure, and Triple H has huge respect for Vince. Josh, any thoughts on a potential Vince McMahon tribute at next year's WrestleMania?
Honestly, I think that would be way too soon after what we had to ordeal. That's not even a year. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I would be fine with it more so like a year after, maybe 2024, but depending on all this mess, because I mean, yes, he didn't have a proper send-off, but there's a reason why he didn't have a proper send-off. You know, you're not going to give a proper send-off to somebody that pretty much got exposed to serious things. You know, what he did, it wasn't like minor, it's very serious what he did. So when it comes to that, I mean, you know, if you're going to honor somebody, I think they should wait. I think they should hold that off for at least another year or two. I just think I think it's way too soon to try to, I don't want to take away his accomplishments. You know, he obviously, you know, he's done a lot for the business. You know, a lot of people say, hey, if it wasn't for Vince McMahon, pro wrestling wouldn't exist today, and all that stuff I get. But at the same time, you can't give passes to stuff that he did and what he was pretty much outed for. So, I mean, again, I'm more so, hey, if you're gonna, like I said, like if you're gonna pay tribute to the guy, just wait a little bit longer. I'm not to do it less than a year. I'm not okay with that.
You know, the sad reality is a lot of people, when the microwave society that we live in right now in the 2020 decade, is they might even forget some of the stuff all of the stuff that he's done over the course of the last 40 to 50 years in just a 8 to 9 month time span. So if they were to just keep him off TV and put him in WrestleMania 39, that would kind of be par for the WWE course. I do agree with you, Josh. I think like WrestleMania 40 would make the most sense just because it ends with a 0. They tend to have a tendency to make those WrestleManias special. And I mean, it's going to be really, really hard to celebrate him, even though he has meant so much to the pro wrestling industry. Like you said, we have a hard time it's really hard to glorify him in 8 to 9 months as opposed to maybe even a year and 8 months. But again, he did what he did, but he's also so huge for the promotion. I just think this is kind of a lose-lose scenario in any way, shape, or form that you present him.
Very true. They can't win for losing when it comes to anything involving Vince McMahon at this point in
it's
time.
just it's I know there's a lot of fans who look past it, but at the same time, I mean, again, like, when it comes to a human level of things, understanding things, people have to understand what he did is fucked up. It's not like it's something you can't give a pass for, no matter what your accomplishments were. There's people who've done less and who've been canceled more for what they've done compared to like, oh yeah, let's let's give Vince a pass, hey, happy retirement. But I'm like, no, like, there's consequences to certain things that you do, and he got out the worst way possible. And, so someone like me, I can't be okay with that. I'm not okay with celebrating somebody at least this soon. I'm not okay with that.
Fair. That's totally fair. WrestleVotes has now taken to Twitter to report that while WWE wants to have 2 champions heading into WrestleMania, they don't want Roman Reigns losing a match between now and April. The quote from Russellville's tweet said, the situation with the world titles and Roman Reigns is quote unquote complex. According to a source, they would like to go into Mania season and WrestleMania itself with 2 champions, but they also don't want Reigns losing at all prior. I'm told Triple H and company are open to all things creatively here. Per WrestlingNews.co, though, a source familiar with the creative process told them that there are still no plans for Roman Reigns to lose the titles this year. And the report noted that when Reigns won the Universal Championship in August 2020, the plan was for him to be the champion for a match against The Rock. Triple H is reportedly moving forward with the initial plan for the Reigns title reign, with the idea for Reigns to walk into WrestleMania as champion. And the report also revealed that Vince McMahon's original plans called for Reigns to retain against The Rock before becoming the company's top babyface. It reportedly isn't clear whether the plan is still for Reigns to retain. So we are really getting Roman Reigns versus The Rock for the undisputed Universal Championship. And we really are not getting the title change. I got all my hopes up for Clash at the Castle, and we're not getting a title change. Do you see an issue with this Roman Reigns title situation, Jesse?
That match shouldn't be for a title. And I get that they want the exclusivity of 2 world champions. And I think the only way that you could do it would be in a kayfabe way, similar to what you did with Bobby Lashley last year at the Elimination Chamber. Is like maybe you have an angle where he gets taken out and he can't defend the WWE Championship, so it'll be decided at Elimination Chamber. Then you can kind of split your ways there. Maybe Cody wins the Royal Rumble and he wrestles the WWE Champion, whoever wins the Elimination Chamber. I think that's a good way to do it, but I would, in a perfect world from a wrestling perspective, I would love to see Roman holding both championships. I just wish that it would be Roman Rock without the titles, but unfortunately, it's not what we're going to get. And that's, again, it's just, to me, that's just very similar. It's kind of status quo for the WWE over the last 2 decades.
Pretty much, unfortunately, that is so true with their current situation, regardless of regime. But regardless of regime, we've been seeing a lot of people return as of late, and the Wrestling Observer newsletter has a recent report talking about Bray Wyatt has indeed had talks with WWE about a possible return to the company. The talks have apparently stalled, but it's reportedly not a dead issue. Talks with companies outside of WWE have also stalled before, as his asking price was above what they wanted to pay. It's believed that when he was in WWE, he was one of the highest paid wrestlers in the world, with Randy Orton and Ronda Rousey behind only Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. Do you think that they will get over this money obstacle? And when do you see Bray Wyatt returning to WWE, if at all, Josh?
I think they'll eventually get over the money aspect of things. As for him returning, I have no idea when, because he always gives like these little cryptic messages, and it seems like nothing happens after, where he teases like, "Oh, I'm going to return soon," or in his own way, and then nothing ever happens. So when it comes to him coming back, I don't know when, but I think they'll eventually get over the money aspect of things. I think he'll end up being back in WWE.
I would hope so. I think he's perfectly lined up to be a Royal Rumble return. Wouldn't you think, Jesse?
Yeah, that makes sense. And again, so would that be 3.5 months? That's perfect timing. Start a new year, add a pretty prominent character. And I guess, again, from a short-term memory standpoint, we kind of hope that erases some of the character problems that have taken place. I think it was just with his Fiend character and Vince McMahon's logic, they didn't mesh well whatsoever. So I think it should be a better go-round for him. It's just a matter of how you repackage him. But Royal Rumble makes sense.
Yeah, it makes the world of sense there. NXT news is they're reportedly set to bring back more takeover events. The Triple H Renaissance continues. The brand has been mostly having its specials as episodes of NXT over the past year, but Fightful Select reports that more will be appearing as premium live events on Peacock and WWE Network. And the site notes in specific, Halloween Havoc is going to be Takeover Halloween Havoc and is currently scheduled for October 22nd and will be a premium live event. This would be a first for the name, as the past two Halloween Havocs were regular NXT specials. Takeover's coming back, Josh. NXT is back. Gotta get on the boat before there's no more room.
I'll drown. I'm okay with that.
I won't let you drown. Speaking of NXT news, oh boy, yes, we're gonna talk about it. Velveteen Dream. Well, he did himself no favors with his latest legal troubles. A new report confirms that WWE had no interest in bringing him back before that. The real name, Patrick Clark, was arrested twice in August, first on August 20th, and for the first-degree battery, trespassing on property after a warning, and possession of drug paraphernalia, and then again on August 26th for possession of drug paraphernalia after admitting to cocaine use, which violated his probation for a previous arrest. According to Fightful Select, WWE sources indicated that they had no desire to bring Clark back before the arrest, with one source noting that it would be a public relations nightmare that the new regime would have no interest in. The site notes that by the time Clark stopped appearing on NXT, he had already had a ton of backstage heat, and even separate from that, he had become a headache, according to one NXT coach. Clark had been talked to several times about unusual behavior in general at the WWE Performance Center, and one WWE source notes that works with those higher up in the company said it would be a miracle for something to happen that resulted in Clark being brought back, and confirmed that there are no plans or talks about bringing him back, despite his posts on social media. And speaking of social media, EC3 this week had a pair of interviews with Sportskeeda Wrestling, among others. And during the discussion, he talked about how Clark videotaped and took pictures of wrestlers' genitals. On catching Velveteen Dream trying to record wrestlers, he said, and I quote, "He got arrested again. When he's going to get rehired, probably not if that's on his record. Plus, he has a lot of demons in the closet." Or what do you mean? I'm glad you asked. Why not? Because in NXT, there was always some speculation about him being a little off, but you're welcome to that. You could be friends. We had a party and it was at my place, and he came over because I'm being friendly and I'm top guy, and I tried to welcome everybody into the thing. He left his phone in my bathroom with the camera on, trying to capture people taking pisses. So there. How did I know? Because it's my bathroom. When I walk in there and I see a phone selfie style propped up on filming, where if somebody is going to take a pee, they would have their phallus out urinating into the water. I'm not gonna lie to you too. This was a late evening of partying, so maybe there are a few cocktails shared. Who knows what everyone else was on? As we know, if he'll do it, cocaine in front of a cop, Lord only knows what he'll do behind a cop's back. And then the former Velveteen Dream posted a new video taking aim at EC3 and denying his claims. And he said, and I quote, "Okay, so let me explain something to everybody. First of all, to everyone who has sent their well wishes and their respects and their love toward me, I just want to say thank you very much, because I love you and I appreciate you all. And the sport means the world to me, okay? And God knows, God works in amazing ways, okay? I guess since I'm on TMZ now, I'm somebody again, and EC3 has gone to the dirt sheets saying that if you haven't seen it, he had a party at his house one night, and if I'm to be correct, this is about 2017, 2018 EC3. And I'm not gonna tell people who was at the party out of respect for our mutual friends, but one of our mutual friends is a former NXT talent that no longer works for the WWE, and the other person is a current Monday Night Raw talent who used to wrestle talent for NXT. Okay, Mike, EC3, you go out here after I give you the best match you've ever had in your entire life. You go out here and I'm tired of people throwing dirt on my name. You throw this dirt on my name saying that I tried to record you in your bathroom. Let's be honest, Mike. You're leaving out a lot of details. What were we doing that night, Mike? What type of powder was on the table, Mike? Okay. Let's be real and let's not leave out all the details. We were all drunk. You were pissy drunk. You were in your place. You were damn near passed out in the corner. He goes on to say, so what did I do? I went to our mutual friend. This is after being caught by EC3, apparently. He says he goes to the mutual friend, and I showed him my phone and had him go through my photos and videos and my recently deleted just to prove to you and the other person that was there who, because I respect him and he has a job, okay? I'm not going to put him out there, okay? I had him to prove to you that I wasn't recording you. Cocaine is a hell of a drug, EC3. Get your shit together. And if anyone would like to go to my friend list right now and check out who follows me, because I'm not following him, EC3 is a follower of mine. I would really think that if you thought that much of me, that you couldn't trust me, you definitely wouldn't be following me on social media, on Instagram, all these years later, EC3. You're pathetic. Now control that narrative, you asshole. EC3 responded to Dream's comments saying, in life, I forgive everyone for everything that has been done to me. I personally have never failed the drug test from any employer, nor been arrested for drug usage, paraphernalia, assault, battery, or any inappropriate behavior. My forgiveness includes Patrick Clark for setting up a video recording device in the bathroom of my home. So he's sticking on this. As far as any other allegations and accusations against him, I hope that he finds the help he needs.
All I want right now is Eric Cartman to just run up in the middle and yell "cripple fight." That's all we need right now with those two. So I know.
I just had to read the Dream quote because he
great.
said, okay.
Lesser of two evils, they're both evil. So we don't know who to believe. And I don't think we necessarily care at this moment, to be honest.
What do you think about all this drama, though, Jesse?
Entertaining, to say the least. I will say that. And Patrick Clark is a very good actor if he is not telling the truth, because if you watch the video, okay, he was very convicting. He was staring blankly and very matter of fact. I have not seen the EC3 portion of this, so I don't know which side I'm going to go on. But again, they're both evil, so just go on and try to make a name of yourself, to try to reclaim 10 more minutes of fame, because I don't think either one of you are going to be getting them at this point.
I just want a t-shirt that just says, okay, Josh, okay. That was great. It was the greatest social media video I've seen in quite some time. Final WWE news note here. Gable Stevenson was, of course, one of WWE's first major NIL signees, but apparently, according to Wrestling Observer newsletter, everything is cold on Stevenson. And while they wanted to debut him on TV some time ago, it hasn't happened because he hasn't progressed well in his training. Stevenson signed the first NIL deal with WWE in September of 2021 and has been seen a couple of times on WWE TV and was even drafted to Raw last October. However, he hasn't been used in any major capacity. According to Wrestling Observer newsletter, WWE was planning on fast-tracking Stevenson after he completed his last wrestling season in March. However, he has not been around or discussed. Stevenson had an update last month noting that he's getting active in his training, and the Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that Gable Stevenson is still under contract with WWE and is still training to be a wrestler for them. There had been questions about about his status because he is not in Orlando at the Performance Center with other prospects, but he's not currently in the company's creative plans or on the list of talent to be used. Josh, what do you think about Gable Steveson getting soured on in WWE?
I'm kind of not surprised by it, just because again, with all these athletes, sometimes you just don't know what you're getting, right? So when it came to Gable Steveson, we know he's a great wrestler because he's a collegiate athlete, he's an All-American, but sometimes that doesn't translate to the wrestling that they do on TV. But also to put, I mean, the comparison to like him and Kurt Angle, I don't think it was fair to him, because now you're expecting way too much from the guy. Because from the moments that I've seen from him, honestly, I don't think the guy has a personality. That's just my opinion. You know, I have not seen that. Even WrestleMania, like that segment of WrestleMania after the first match, it was kind of cringing to me. And that was the main thing for me. Like when it comes to that, like when it comes to Gable Steveson and the situation that he's in, you know, he's a great athlete, but does he have the charisma? Does he have that? Like, does he have the total package? And I have not seen that from him. So when it comes to him being, you could say he's being iced right now, I'm not really surprised by it. I just think so many people had too many hopes, and it was kind of unfair to him because you're making a comparison to, you're talking about one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. So I don't think it was fair to him either way.
Yeah, sometimes there's very unfair comparisons for people in wrestling. We've seen it with Parker Bordeaux and Brock, and now you're seeing it with Stevenson and Angle now.
Exactly. Gable, I met him last November, and that's the one thing that stood out to me. And you saw it at WrestleMania, so I don't really have too much to follow up on that because the man has crazy athletic ability. I know that he could probably execute a moonsault no problem. He's 270. He moves extremely well, so it has to be the charisma. It has to be the personality. That is probably what hasn't progressed because the guy has a ton of athletic ability, and I'm pretty confident it's going to translate well in the ring. It's just a matter of his character, and I think that's probably where he's floundering.
Probably so, for sure. But we got to move on to AEW news, as the Wrestling Observer newsletter has yet more fallout from the AEW backstage drama. They're reporting that a rumor going around about something Kenny Omega said during an AEW talent meeting a month ago. The speech was described as tough love and a pep talk, but one line in particular rubbed some talents the wrong way. At one point, Omega said that 8 out of 10 people on the roster he wouldn't have even hired. The Wrestling Observer newsletter notes that Omega did say this. One source said that Omega was joking and said he was joking as he was messing with Will Ospreay, who he looked at when he said it, and many were said to have laughed about it. However, there were others that took it seriously and got upset. Several people said that it was totally misinterpreted and taken out of context, but it still bothered some people. Omega also said that the energy and vibe of the locker room were more positive than when AEW started, and likely wanting to recreate that with the current roster. Josh, what do you think about what Omega said, and do you think it's just a misunderstanding?
I think it's a misunderstanding. I knowing how Omega is, he usually when he does like these. Sometimes when he says certain things, or like when he does interviews, he tends to go kayfabe with it. So I think that's what it was. On the other hand, I can't blame for some people if they took it the wrong way. Unfortunately, that's what happens. Sometimes a joke could land. Sometimes for some people it doesn't. It's just this unfortunate situation. But I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Yeah, I certainly don't either. But we have news about more returns, not Kenny Omega, but another return that hasn't been talked about in a while. The Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that Jeff Hardy is expected to finish his rehab program soon. He would then be able to return to the ring. Hardy previously pleaded not guilty to the charges of his DUI arrest from this past June, and will have a pre-trial hearing over the matter next month. Jesse, what do you think about Jeff Hardy possibly returning? Matt Hardy on the Extreme Life of Matt Hardy, teasing that we would see a new Jeff Hardy upon his return.
He's on life number 14 right now, so it's really hard to resurrect some of the troubles that he's gone through, and he's gone through rehab multiple times. It's going to be, I don't necessarily know also if I want to see a different character from Jeff Hardy right now with AEW's roster being so loaded. It's just going to get lost in the shuffle. I'm very indifferent on it, so I guess my answer would be to keep him off TV. And the one thing that I really hope for is that he just continues to stay on the straight and narrow once he completes rehab and he's ready to go. Life is way more important in the grand scheme of things as opposed to the pro wrestling aspect for Jeff Hardy at this moment. So I kind of just want him to just stay in the background.
Yeah, we got Negro Buck Nick Jackson, who kind of echoes that. I think Jeff needs to take more time away. Annika adding no more ladder matches for the first 6 months. Yeah. I would hope so. There was also a interesting rumor that Warner Brothers Discovery, the TV partner of All Elite Wrestling, could possibly merge with NBC Universal, the TV partner of WWE under the USA Network. So if the merger would happen, it would happen in 2024, and then AEW and WWE would have the same television partner. What do you think about that possibility and the timing of it with WWE and AEW looking for new TV contracts in 2024 as well, Josh?
That'd be interesting as fuck because it's because with the whole merger that has been going on now, I mean that's been confusing as hell. So because there's stuff that they eliminated already when it comes to their content. So for them to do that all over again, in the next 2 years possibly, it's bizarre just to try to understand everything.
It's tough to get your head around, especially with WBD and their craziness at the moment. And an interesting social media exchange between wrestlers. The Forbidden Door was opened between AEW and WWE as they had a back and forth, a battle of words online between Sheamus and Maxwell Jacob Freeman, MJF, about the important topic of heels wearing scarves. The whole thing began when Sheamus posted to Twitter to tell Happy Corbin that real heels wear scarves, leading to a response from the famously scarf-wearing MJF. MJF called the WWE star's post sad, which led to Sheamus sharing the Conor McGregor gif meme where the UFC fighter proclaimed, "Who the fuck is this guy?" MJF responded, and I quote, saying, "The guy you alluded to, stop now or I'm gonna devour you. You can rock 6-inch lifts and play top guy, but you've been handed the ball multiple times and fell. I'm glad you're having a renaissance and finally figured out how to get over. It only took you a decade. Took me a day." Sheamus then shared a shot of Chris Jericho in a scarf, which led to another MJF reply where he said, "Yes, you were definitely referring to a guy who wore a scarf back in 2016. You got me. Can't wait for my boy at Baron Corbin WWE to end you." This is like a 10-8 round for MJF, isn't it?
This to me is Eminem versus Everlast in a battle on Twitter. Sheamus, you barked up the wrong tree on this one. I'm sorry. You could have picked a fight with anyone in AEW verbally, but you win against MJF, and that is, again, I think if we are going to use a CM Punk quote here, MJF could just say, "Tell me when I'm wrong."
Exactly.
But then also, when the hell did Sheamus started using like Twitter or something? It's just like it's weird. It's like, oh, why did this happen? Like, why did this happen?
I think Sheamus has been told by management to use Twitter more because he has been more active in the last couple of months. So, and he made the mistake.
Stick to the workout videos with your buddies. That is what you excel at.
And MJF is kind of right.
MJF.
he's kind of right with what he said, which I don't want to say, hey, that was a little, but he's kind of right with what he said, because there was a time where Sheamus was floundering and he was just there. You know, remember he beat Roman for that title and nobody cared until Roman won it back and everybody cared. So, I mean.
And it took the bar to get him back on a certain level. And then after the bar ended, he was lost in the shuffle again until his recent renaissance. So pick the wrong day and the wrong guy, Sheamus.
18 seconds, he defeated Daniel Bryan, which catapulted Daniel Bryan to the top of the
Not him. Yeah. Very true. Very true. Not him at all. But let's get some rapid fire predictions in the mix. And with our final AEW news note, it's the cards for AEW Dynamite Grand Slam, AEW Rampage Grand Slam. If you are one of our great Patreon backers at patreon.com/Tru Heel Heat, you could be a part of our prediction championship, where we will be getting predictions for Dynamite on Wednesday, for Rampage on Friday. So be a part of the prediction champion. $3 a month, become a Patreon backer. But let's hear what Jesse, Josh, and myself have to say about AEW Grand Slam, Dynamite Grand Slam this Wednesday. Let's talk about that one first. Get everybody's predictions. Josh, who you got? AEW All Atlantic Championship, Pac versus Orange Cassidy.
I'm going with Pac.
Jesse?
Also going with Pac here.
Unanimous for Pac all around here. AEW Interim World Women's Championship, Toni Storm versus Athena versus Britt Baker versus Serena Deeb. I'm going with Storm to retain here. Jesse?
Toni Storm just makes the most sense right now.
Josh?
Storm is retaining.
ROH World Championship up for grabs. Claudio Castagnoli defends against Chris Jericho. Jesse, who you got?
I can't see Claudio's first loss going against Chris Jericho, even though it would be intriguing, like somebody alluded to earlier, to see Chris Jericho with the Ring of Honor Championship. I'll stick with Claudio in this one.
I think Claudio just scratches by to set up a rematch, but I got Claudio here. Josh?
I got Claudio. I don't see him losing the belt anytime soon.
AEW World Tag Team Championships up for grabs. You got Swerve and Our Glory defending against the Acclaimed. I'm going with the Acclaimed. It has to be their night, right, Josh?
Yeah, I think it's pretty set in stone. It got to be. If it's not, then I don't know what's going to happen tonight. I don't know what's going to happen that night.
Jesse?
You're not going to leave the two biggest United States markets angry after a match. And specifically with these two teams, you got to go the Acclaimed here and strike while the iron is probably at its absolute hottest.
And the most interesting of the matches on either card, AEW World Championship up for grabs in the Grand Slam Tournament of Champions Finals, Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson. Who you got, Jesse?
Let's go Danielson so Moxley can get some much-needed vacation time that the CM Punk and the Young Bucks robbed him of.
Josh?
I was actually going with Danielson too, more so for that reason. But I think if the plan is for MJF to win the title, I think Danielson could be a nice fall guy compared to Mox for that to happen.
Especially if they do something like Money in the Bank where MJF just cashes it in at Grand Slam. That would be very interesting too. I might change my mind before Wednesday, but just to be different on this show, I'm going with Jon Moxley. I think Moxley's promo, that would put the stamp that he's the ace of the company. AEW Rampage Grand Slam, guys, has more matches than Dynamite. What the fuck are we doing? TBS Championship, Jade Cargill versus Diamante. Jade, obviously, right?
I think that's why there's more matches, because that one's going to be a squash match.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be a squash. No disqualification match, though. Buddy Matthews and Brody King of the House of Black versus Sting and Darby Allin. Who you got, Jesse?
Sting and sorry.
Yeah, you got to go Sting and Darby here. Sting will maintain his undefeated streak in AEW. The 62-year-old Sting. Man, undefeated.
I was like, yeah, because I was to say that. I'm like, Sting does not lose. Do not bet against Sting. He does not lose.
I learned my lesson after all out. I'm not betting against Sting. Golden ticket battle royal for AEW World Championship opportunity. I know Hangman Adam Page, the Dark Order, Andrade, Roosh are all in this matchup. So it's either going to be Moxley or Danielson. I mean, if it's Moxley, I'm going with Hangman Adam Page to win this one. Give me Moxley versus Hangman on the anniversary show. Jesse, who you got?
Whoa. That's mind-blowing right there. Isn't it in Roosh's creative contract for him to not lose this much? Let's go Roosh just to be contrarian. Give me a Danielson Roosh match at some random Dynamite.
I mean, I'd be down for that too. Roosh, give me Roosh in there. I want to see Roosh versus Hangman after that was teased as well. Josh, who you got?
I think I'm gonna go with Hangman. I think I think what you're referring to, I think that was Andrade. I think that was the rumor supposedly that he wanted more creative control. So he didn't want to lose as much. Supposedly that was the rumor when it came to that.
They're brothers. I mean, hey, it stays in the family there from a creative perspective. It'd be weird to me to see Hangman in a one-off title match that I don't think he's going to win. So that's the only reason I don't see him winning here.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that is true. Action Bronson and Hook versus 2.0. I mean, obviously, I'm going with Hook. Josh?
I'm a Hook and Action Bronson. That's easy.
Much like Sting, Hook does not lose either, especially in this scenario. So Hook and Bronson.
I need the big money matchup, Hook versus Sting. Whose streak will end? Ricky Starks versus Powerhouse Hobbs. I think Ricky Starks gets his win back here. Who y'all got?
Starks gets his win. I think he gets his win back as well.
Jesse?
Yeah, and I'm going to go Starks here too, although the 50-50 in some of these situations is starting to become a little WWE-esque to me, so be careful, AEW, with this scenario. I love both of these guys, so I would have loved to see them separated for about 9 months before you revisit this and let them both just get monster pushes and put a scenario where they have to wrestle for a title. But I'll go Starks.
Samoa Joe and Wardlow versus Tony Nese and Josh Woods. I'm going with the champions here, Joe and Wardlow. Jesse?
Absolutely. Joe Wardlow continuing on their slightly undefeated run.
Josh?
Wardlow and Joe. I think that one's pretty easy.
Ray Phoenix versus Jungle Boy. First time ever in AEW. This should be fucking amazing. I can't wait to see this one live. I'm going with Jungle Boy in this one. Who you got, Josh?
Jungle Boy. Just for more so momentum perspective. Phoenix doesn't really need to win at the moment. I think Jungle Boy needs it more. So I think that's just more momentum for him.
Jesse?
I got to agree there, too, especially after I believe he lost to Jay Lethal last week. Got to go Jungle Boy.
And then finally, New York's own Eddie Kingston versus Sammy Guevara. They're finally going to complete their feud, have their matchup. Eddie has to win in New York. That's a necessity. I won't take any other answer. Jesse?
You have to go that way, or if there is going to be a riot in Arthur Ashe Stadium, it's probably going to be from this scenario if Sammy somehow pulls it out.
Perfect spot to do it. Josh?
I'm going with Kingston. As long as Kingston beat the shit out of him, I'm all for it.
Seems legit. New Japan Pro Wrestling news, real quick. Kota Ibushi has been out of action from New Japan since October of last year. He has been dealing with injuries, and there was some controversy later on when he made accusations against one of the company staff, and he has yet to wrestle since all of that happened. The Wrestling Observer newsletter had a brief update noting that Ibushi is still rehabbing his shoulder. However, it's a slow process, and it's still unknown when he will be be back, and New Japan Pro Wrestling has announced an IWGP Tag Team Championship matchup of FTR versus Aussie Open for night 1 of New Japan Pro Wrestling Royal Quest 2, and the event happens on October 1st and 2nd. This one will be on the 1st. And then Impact Wrestling news, they got a big show next Friday, Impact Victory Road. So we'll rapid fire through these predictions as well. Tasha Steelz versus Killer Kelly. I think Killer Kelly continues her streak in Impact. Who you got, Josh?
Killer Kelly. I'm gonna go with her.
Jesse?
Let's make that unanimous. Killer Kelly's on a roll right now.
Giselle Shaw will go one-on-one with Mickie James, a part of the Last Rodeo storyline. I think Mickie picks up another win against Giselle Shaw here. Jesse?
She came out like a ball of fire 2 weeks ago. Mickie James is going to be the one that's getting her upcoming to get victorious here.
Josh?
I'm gonna go with Mickie.
You got Josh Alexander, Heath, and Rich Swann versus Eddie Edwards and the OGK of Honor No More. Going with Honor No More to pick up the win here ahead of Bound for Glory. Who you got, Jesse?
Makes more sense, I think, to have Honor No More go over here.
Who you got, Josh?
I'm gonna go with Honor No More.
You got X Division triple threat revolver matchup. So it's basically going to start off as a triple threat. When a person gets pinned, they're eliminated and a new person comes out. You got Kazarian from AEW, Kenny King of Honor No More, Laredo Kid of AAA, Alex Zane, Mia Yim, Trey Miguel, Black Taurus, and Yuri Uemura of New Japan Pro Wrestling. The winner will become the number 1 contender for the X Division Championship at Bound for Glory. This is tough. I either want to go with Kazarian, Kenny King, or Mia Yim here. I'll go with Kenny King to fit the theme of Honor No More getting title shots at Bound for Glory. Josh?
That actually makes sense. I actually like that pick.
Jesse?
Let's go contrarian here, and we'll go with Black Taurus.
Ooh.
That's a good pick. He's been killing it. And him versus Speedball, give me that. Speaking of the Speedball, he defends the X Division Championship against an ROH staple, former ROH booker, Delirious. Who you got in this one, Jesse?
If Speedball Mike Bailey is not in the PWI 500 top 10 next year, I will be in an absolute state of shock. He's going to take that Vikingo or that Jonathan Gresham spot. So Speedball Mike Bailey here for sure.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely going for Speedball. Josh?
I'm going for Speedball. I'm just glad Delirious is not booking this match.
Also, good voice. You got Pick Your Poison matchup. Jordan Grace will pick the hand-picked opponent of Masha Slamovich, who she faces at Bound for Glory, and she will face Max the Impaler with Father James Mitchell. I think Jordan Grace gets the win here, though. Jesse?
Gotta go Jordan Grace. She's on a roll.
Josh?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Grace. I don't see her losing the title.
And then finally, the main event of Victory Road is going to be Sami Callihan not defending anything, but in a barbed wire massacre against his 2 rivals, Moose and Steve Macklin. I'm going with Steve Macklin in this one. Who you got, Josh?
I don't know. This one's tough. I'll say I'll go with Moose. I don't know why. I'll go with Moose.
Jesse?
Sami Callihan, this is his style of match. The other two, I'm not 100% sure. I think he's going to get wiped out at some point. So let's go Macklin.
You're thinking on the right side of history, sir. Yes, that brings us to a close on our news rundown. Very quickly, though, we started something that I think is going to be a staple of our flagship show every week, the match of the week, where each of the hosts can give a gold medal, a silver medal, and a bronze medal to the best matches from this past week. To let the guys have more of an opportunity to think about this before they say their answers. I'll give mine first. Bronze medal, I'm going to give that to Johnny Gargano versus Chad Gable from Monday Night Raw. Really strong matchup. Really enjoyed that one. The silver medal, I'm going to give that to Swerve in Our Glory versus the Lucha Bros for the AEW World Tag Team titles from AEW Dynamite. And this week, my gold medal for the match of the week is going to go to the main event from AEW Dynamite, Chris Jericho versus Bryan Danielson. Great technical wrestling matchup and a good finish with Danielson wedging back on the nose before locking in the label lock for the victory in this one. Josh, what's your match of the week? Gold medal, silver medal, bronze?
Bronze medal, I'm gonna go with Mox and Sammy. I thought like their two different styles worked well together. Silver, I'll go with Gargano and Gable just because it was nice seeing Gargano. It looked like he didn't lose the step. That's a good thing for him. And gold, I'm gonna go with Danielson and Jericho. I thought like I said earlier, their match was way better than it wasn't All Out. And seeing this resurgence of Chris Jericho focusing on the wrestling aspect of things, I think that's been a positive for him.
Jesse, give us your gold, silver, bronze medal for match of the week.
The harder one is the silver and the bronze, so I'll flip-flop yours, Sid, and I am going to go Swerve in Our Glory versus the Lucha Bros as my bronze, even though it is in my absolute wheelhouse and probably should have it silver. But Gargano and Gable, silver, just because Johnny's back 9 months, looked like he hadn't lost a step. Gable was the perfect opponent, my style of match. And then, of course, gold, unanimous across the board, Danielson and Jericho. Very, very smartly technical from a technical piece and just also from a storytelling perspective as well. They had a little more time and a lot more focus. So got to go there with the gold.
Good choices all around at what was not the busiest week. It's not like last week where we had a whole bunch of choices for, match of the week. But this week, I think it was kind of a few matches stood out and was in everybody's kind of wheelhouse for this one. If you want to see my full list of the top 10 best matches from last weekend, Labor Day 2022 weekend, that is up on the channel right now. So go over and check that out. But that's going to bring us to a close for Tru Heel Heat 193. Huge thanks to Jesse for being our special guest, first time on the show. Please let the people know where they can follow you, what you got going on, and definitely tell them where they can listen to your great podcast doing some spectacular work, man.
I appreciate you having me on. So the Twitter handle is in the corner, Jesse C. Velasquez, Velasquez, if you're listening in audio form. Wrestling's Unplugged and Undeniable on Google, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you can find most of your podcasts. Wrestling, the letter U, and you. Also on Twitter is the account page. I will be writing for SE Scoops beginning next week. And I believe that is everything that I have to promote from a wrestling perspective. I'll go real quick, jessewellness.com for your fitness and nutritional needs, online programming as well. So if you're looking to get in shape, that is definitely the way to go. Look me up there. And again, I'm very, very thankful for the time that I had in your show. I had a blast. This was awesome, and it flew, even though it says 2 hours and 39 minutes.
we try our best to make it go smooth, and despite not having a lot of wrestling news to discuss here, we still went 2 hours and a half because it was a great conversation. Josh, thanks for filling in this week. We appreciate you, good brother. But tell the people where they can usually find you here on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel and your social media and your artwork.
Yeah, so social media, you can find me at jmpunk321, Twitter and Instagram. You can find me every week on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel. Every Mondays, Rated Raw Superstars. Every Wednesday, Elite Heat, and then every weekend on Twitch for Rampage wrap up, which I'll be doing recording after this. So, yeah, look forward to that.
Yes, and that means, guys, you got more content to enjoy. So don't think the day of wrestling content is over. Jump over the twitch.tv/Tru Heel Heat Wrestling. Josh and John will be going live in a bit with Rampage wrap-up reviewing AEW Rampage. Until then, you can follow me on the Twitter machine at Tru Heel SP3. Follow the gang, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Tru Heel Heat. Patreon.com/Tru Heel Heat. Heat. You got the post show. You got the Tru Heel Heat Prediction Championship, New Japan Pro Wrestling coverage, Joshi coverage over there, ProWrestlingTees.com/Tru Heels. Go over to Tru Heel Heat Sports. We got coverage later on tonight for the Canelo versus Triple G3 fight, the trilogy coming up tonight on DAZN. Romeo will be hosting that, so go over and join us over there. If you're looking for content on this YouTube channel, check out my new interview, Tru Heels BTR Between the Ropes, with Impact World Tag Team Champion Matt Taven. We talk about his transition from Ring of Honor to Impact Wrestling, how he reacted to Ring of Honor going on hiatus, what does he think about Tony Khan taking over Ring of Honor, and what does he think about the Tru Heel Heat wrestling community who always talk shit about him. We get all of that.
Oh, that was great. That was great. And that was deserving too, by the way. Very deserving of them.
Josh is just pointing the finger at all of you. Thank you so much to all you guys. Thanks to you, my boy Blue. Thanks to Safi. Thanks to the Negro Buck, Nick Jackson, Annika. Thank you all for joining us. Huge thanks to Jesse for being our special guest this week. We greatly appreciate it, good brother. We'll definitely have you back on soon. For Tru Draw Josh, for filling in for Miss Krssi Luv, for the producer. It is me, your Tru Heel Phenom, SP3. This has been Tru Heel Heat 193 Super Feeler Party. We are signing off until next time.